I can't. Every time I break first.
You know what? You know what the best was? We didn't talk about it off camera. We didn't talk about it. We just knew we were gonna do
And
it.
it feels like we're just understanding the needs of one another. And that's the
Right.
most important in Cast a Duo. Now, Timothy, I don't know if you saw these players on our screen, but on my screen, I see that we have a brand new player here called Catterbrain, which honestly, I feel like Dragovan is going to have his work cut out for him. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. Uh,
I think so too because I think he's got a little bit of before the series started. I think he had a little bit of catnip, so he is flying. Okay, for this for this 5 game series, it's gonna be crazy. There is an S there. It's supposed to be scatterbrained, so hopefully he's able to put his neurons together and make a good series out of this game 5. Okay.
oh, we can see it's
Oh, okay. Never mind.
apparently we have just heard confirmation that Scatterbrain's name is too big brain and it just doesn't fit on here. So from here on out, he will be known as Scatterbrain. And I think that would be the easiest on all of us. But guys, we see two little legs here. Oh my gosh, look at that cute name. Perfect. Perfect. This is why we have production, the top tier production coming out of Norway, represent so that we can get beautiful names appearing on our screens like that. But now, Scatterbrained, he banned, I don't know if he was the one who banned this, but both of these players banned HRE, and then we have a Delhi and a Byzantines coming out from both sides, which honestly, I'm not surprised. Apparently, Delhi is in one of the best places they've been in ages. So getting Delhi a ban here is probably the best course of action, especially if you're not used to dealing with those masses. But on this map, I wouldn't have expected to see either, but we do see our two Abbasid Ayubid picks coming in here. They've been very popular on hybrids, on water. Timmy, Timothy. It's so weird seeing you as Timothy. What is what is your feel like on the map we see in front of us?
So I actually really like Kurlager, and I understand why
Mhm.
both of these players picked the civs that they did. For Ayubids and Abbasid, your docks are half priced, right? And we're gonna
Mhm.
see once we get to the map, we'll do a little bit of an overview just to see because Kurlager is a fairly new map. It was previously from actually Age of Mythology has this map first, and then it ended up getting converted to Age of Empires 4. So we're gonna look at the map just a little bit and kind of see where the differences are. But those two, you can see it just on the screen. The little bit of river that's there. And you know what? Cal's just gonna cut me off. He's like, this guy's rambling, that's enough. Get yourself a Steel Series alias microphone so you can sound as good as we do. Now, game number 1 in the series, Scatterbrain playing as the Ivids in the color yellow, Dragavon in the color purple as the Abbasid dynasty. Whamen, how do you feel about Kurlager? Are you a fan?
I am a huge fan of Galaga. It reminds me a little bit of Scandinavia in the sense that you either get the craziest water shenanigans or you get a little bit of a cheese straight into your base. But both of these players going for that wood early. So both of them seem to be dropping a dock and both on the same side, which is honestly a little bit surprising here. But I know that the water opening is so important to get ahead and stay ahead. There's only shoreline fish on this map. So you can see that little dock covers 4 little bits of fish. So it won't be there for the long haul, but it does give you that boost into outlasting. But now, knowing that these two players they're quite spicy. I would say Dragovan is more known for his spice. The man has cooked several builds in people's faces, and I wouldn't be surprised for Scatterbrain to be caught off guard here. So, aside from that, I think this is going to be up to the coaches as well. Both of these players, they are relatively close in skill, and I think the coaches that are standing behind them should be the ones who will help them catch that victory when the matchup is so close.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting dynamic. Kurlager is, and obviously a little bit of coaching paying off because that scout trying to take hits on the villagers. But the interesting dynamic of Kurlager is all of this is obviously shore with shoreline fish, but because you can see the scout and the villager over there, you could just run through it, right? So you get a dock to try to get some economic advantage, right? You're trying to get some shoreline fish, but at the same time, it's very easy for you to get a surround on it, take it down. There is a ability for demo ships to get some catastrophic hits, so there's definitely a play for that, especially for Dragavon with the Abbasid dynasty, because if you do things like go military wing and you get those rams really quickly, you get those military units very quickly, it really helps because you could take down a dock before it even gives you that economic advantage. And both of these civs actually have the ability to do that if Iubids chose to go military wing.
And what I love about both of these civs is they have more than one answer for water. Like you said, with the military wing, it is a great opening. It puts you at such a good advantage. And especially when you're doing Aerobids, you constantly get a camel. Abba said you once off, you get those units, but they are so good at just making sure that you get that ram built in front of the dock. Now, to see what's coming out of both of these, we've seen a little bit of culture wing coming from Aerobids and Abbasids, so I'm actually quite interested to see how that would play out now. Because a lot of people choose to go for that dervish. I don't think it's that common on a hybrid maps, but it does put you in such a interesting position when you do get units, you get to heal them up, and you do set the pace of the game. But I'm excited to see what they click here now. Dragoman getting very close to aging up now. He's clicked it. Military wing comes out. Not very surprising from Abbasid. It's a good wing for this map. It's better than any chicken wing you can think of. So let's see what Scatterbrain follows up with as well. He's going to be a little bit further behind, but like you said, whether you like it or not, it's 1 minute 45. So he is going to be behind by a few seconds.
Yeah, you know, with these House of Wisdom choices, I've even seen for the Iubids, because you're exactly right on hitting on all of the different wings that you can do, but I've seen some people go for Culture Wing, not for the dervishes, but for the fast age up. And I think that's especially more for hybrid maps when you share the same water. Just getting that tempo advantage, getting that first military ship. Not going to be the case here. He's going with Economic Wing, so he's going to get 3 extra villagers. So you had the potential to go military to get a Desert Raider, but if the opposite is going military wing, they already have a couple archers that are going to counter you anyway. So going for the economic wing, getting a little bit of payoff might be very helpful. But with Dragovant going military wing, the amount of tempo that you get, Whamen, because as soon as this thing is done, you don't have to build a barracks, you don't have to build an archery range, you don't have to wait for those units to get produced. So you just get 2 spearmen, 2 archers for free, and they already have siege engineering strapped onto them. So these guys, I mean, obviously, Dragovant sees the dock that Scatterbrain has. He could just put 4 units over there, build a ram real quick, and before you know it, it's gone.
Yeah, the problem is when you're going for economic wing as Aerobids, you do get that 3 extra bills at the start, right? So it does scoot you a little bit ahead, but you need to make sure that you can respond for something. And with Scatterbrain being on 260 wood, we know he's cooking something. So dropping down a second dock there at the top, we see it there at the north side, but we do see Dragoman getting ahead, making sure that he puts a wall down. And this is going to force him to have to deal with that wall before he tries to rally military ships across the map. So Scatterbrain going for that second dock up top is definitely going to help him sustain himself when the pressure starts to get a little bit more intense. Now, Scatterbrain, he's floating a lot of food as well here, and I don't know if that's just going to be something he's going to throw down and make actual units from it, because a bunch of camels wouldn't be surprising here.
Yeah, I mean, getting any kind of land presence is a good idea when you're up against the Abbasid military wing, you know? But again, it's just going to be that tempo to do it, right? So Dragovant actually not choosing to go for that dock at all. Because he put that wall up, it means that he's going to be safe from any kind of danger. He's just going for villagers. He's going to be able to take hits on the gold villagers, create a little bit of idle time, and this is just a little bit of tempo that Dragovant really needs. Scatterbrain just hit Feudal Age at about the 6-minute mark, so it's going to take a while. He's got to get his production buildings, all that kind of stuff to keep up with what Dragovant's doing. And now with those 2 extra units, he put a little hole in the wall just so that arrow ship can get over there, and it looks like it will. Scatterbrain going for a springled ship, and hopefully it gets out in time for him. But Dragovant really setting the tone early in this series.
Yeah, the problem I think here for Dragovan is that our ship is going to be dead weight if not maintained properly, and we don't see any other ship following this up. But he's cooking some horses at the back here, so this might not be a problem for too long. Now, the thing is, that one Springle ship is not going to be able to shut down a ram either, but let's see if he's going to be able to reach quite far. He does lose this arrow ship, which is a huge loss this early in the game, because this just means that Scatterbrain is going to be able... Ooh, and he's going to get some good shots off here too.
Ooh.
If he loses this military, that's a big pickup for him.
That's really important. You know, you could have, with that ram, you could have built it in the stealth forest, as Cout's highlighting there. It could have been helpful just so the springled ship doesn't see it. I mean, obviously, hindsight's 20/20, but now, with the military units that Dragovon has, he added a couple horsemen. He has a stable in the back too, because he probably expected Scatterbrain to go for archers. The horseman is a really good play against Ayubids too, because if he goes up with Desert Raiders, he's gonna have that bonus damage that the horsemen have against ranged units. But that dock is gonna go down. Scatterbrain's got another dock on the other side. Now he has to repopulate his fishing economy, get all of those fishing boats together to get that food that he needs. And he's going to have to pull some villagers onto food. And at a time when you're playing on a hybrid map, you really don't want to do that.
And we see with that double archery range now being out, he's not going to be able to respond to these horses too easily. This is going to require a lot of micro here. But the Springald ship is doing work in pushing this back, but not really the work you needed to do. The horsemen are flanking a little bit, just making sure those archers don't leave the base at all. This ram can just go straight towards the other side, but we do see he hasn't made any fishing boats on the other side. I think this is just because he is getting pressured from over here. Now, with the scout running around just trying to see what he can, he does spot that villager trying to build a sneaky dock up north, and we do see the military moving there too. And the horses a little bit further out, but they almost spot that villager. Luckily, horses don't have the best field of vision, so they think that the villager is still just up there. The camels will be able to provide that unease, making sure they are not going to run around for free. The villager in a little bit of danger now. He is trying to sneak by. Horses getting some good damage, and they might actually... No, not today, they say. Don't get to pick him off just yet.
It took one more hit for that villager to go down. And it's really important because it stops the dock from going up. It creates a little bit of idle time. Dragovon getting a little cheeky with that ram, but the Ayubid villagers have something to say about it. But a couple of them might go down. Now remember, he's got 3 villagers to pull this. His economic wing gave him those 3 villagers. Now they're dead. So you just made a wing for Feudal Age, and you're supposed to get tempo. You're supposed to get something from it. Now it's gone.
Now, this is just what happens if you're making sure that you get your opponent to focus on all the sides. It's really hard to focus on everything at the same time. And, I mean, Scatterbrain is trying his best, but I think his brain was a little bit scattered all over there. He was trying to burn this down, and unfortunately, those 3 going down too. But we do see Dragoman also getting a purple dot there on the right side on the top lake. So there's a ship heading... Ooh, what is that heading up? I see something on the water there going, oh, it's just a fishing boat. Fishing boat for scouting or, oh, just for fishing today. But Scatterbrain already has a dhow. He's going to be able to shut this down too, and Dragovan will have to invest a little bit more on here. He has queued up a Springald ship as well, and double dock as well. This is going to be a nice domination for him if he can get control of this lake here. But Scatterbrain's army is looking scary. He's doubling down on these archers. He has 2 camels for the unease. And with the 5 horsemen, I feel like they'll be able to deal with this, and there's more coming. So Scatterbrain does need to respond by getting a few more units here, because 2 camels ain't gonna cut it, Chief.
Yeah, those Desert Raiders, even though I hardly know her, it's such an interesting dynamic, as this Springald ship ends up getting hit by a bunch of archers, and I think it is going to go down. It's the power of a Kurlager having the shoreline, and all of those guys can get over there. But the Desert Raider, like, you put horsemen against Desert Raider, they both do bonus damage against each other. So it's a very weird paradigm when you're actually getting an attack, and they're just providing a little bit of unease. Scatterbrain's got some spearmen in the back as well, so for those horsemen, that's going to be really effective. But you're exactly right. I think you nailed it, Whamen. I think Dragovon just needs units because he's in a good spot. His fish was relatively untouched on the western side. Eastern side, he was able to defend a little bit. So now all of this just has to pay off. If he's able to get these to pay off, it's going to be really important. The amount of horsemen that he has, probably not enough to take this fight. I only see 1 over there for him. And also, as Cal was pointing out to us from the House of Wisdom, doesn't have boot camp. So that little bit of extra health could mean a big deal against a civilization that doesn't on the other side.
And I think Dragovan is kind of losing a little bit of that control here. We saw him throwing those horsemen into the archers, and this is just him not being able to be like, okay, what do I need to do with these? Where do I gather up and push in with them? But this comes with experience. I'm sure Beastie is yapping in his ear right now, telling him like, hey dude, you're supposed to be doing something else. But the horsemen are at the right focus point just now, and they're getting in, but the Springald ship is going to get some cheap shots off here at the back. The archers do focus the archers down, so this should be okay, but we do see that Dal coming in, making sure that he's going to get that Springald ship, because that could be a very painful hit. And that is a majority of Scatterbrain's control over here right now. Those archers did an amazing, amazing job. A lot of military upgrades coming in here from Dragovan, and he's spending those resources as best he can. Camels get a little bit of a shot there off on a horse. The horse goes down, but the archer mass is quite scary. From Scatterbrain, we do see 24 archers already, so this isn't going to be that great for Dragovan in the long run, but like you said, the boot camp is still in his pocket. So once he gets that, those archer numbers are not going to be as important to have even.
And there's also not only boot camp Whamen, but as you get to Castle Age with the Abbasid Dynasty, don't forget composite bows. You know, they get a third arm that comes out of their stomach, and they fire at 33% more faster, right? So if you have similar archer numbers, Dragovon wins this fight. So it's very interesting because the Iabids are all about tempo, right? Getting their wings, going up to Castle Age, getting whatever. It's supposed to give you a tempo boost to help propel you, right? It feels like for the economic wing, it didn't do as much as he wanted, and now he's facing Dragovon, who has a superior military force because of that boot camp, and it's going to get created, or it's going to get completed, I should say, in just a couple seconds. Dragovon's taking fights by the shoreline, so Scatterbrain's going to be able to help out with some of these military ships. You saw that before with the Springald ship, and especially that archer ship against the archer mass that Dragovon has. He should know that he can't take this fight. You know, if he has the superior military mass, you want to get land on land, just take a fight in the middle instead of all of this, because he's using all of these arrow ships. He's trying to get some help from his navy, and Scatterbrain's going to keep repelling Dragovon if he keeps taking fights there.
Now, the problem is you're losing units every now and again just to those ship fire. And the thing is, yes, you are getting the military ships to be, or the fishing ships to be a little bit idle, but I don't know if it's paying off just yet. Ooh, and the Dal coming there from Scatterbrain, making sure that he gets a little bit of a cheap shot there on the fishing boats as well. But this ship is trying to stay alive. Oh, he's losing control of his junk there too, and it goes down in flames. What is demolition ship? There we go. There we go. But
and this is, I mean, this is where this is where your brain getting scattered is very important. You know, when you're in a hybrid map like this, and you have so many areas that you got to pay attention to. I know that a lot of people, like if you're a casual AoE4 player, you might not like to play on water, but it really shows how important it is to have a high APM, to understand all of these things that are going on in the map, things like a Four Lakes, things like a Kurlager, because there's so much going on. Just like that demo ship taking care of that Springald ship on the eastern side. If you've got 3 different fronts, if you're working on all of these different angles, the 2 rivers, of course your landmass, and you're trying to raid at the same time, having the presence of mind to do all of it and do it efficiently is what separates the wheat from the chaff.
And we can see this double-pronged attack is doing exactly that. Dragovan being on both sides at the same time is exactly something that will scatter your brain wherever you don't want it to be. And that's what happened there now. Just being able to pull all those units off, or the villagers off from work, it's putting him in a pretty decent position. Because behind this, we can see that Scatterbrain is thinking about castle. And Dragovan is nowhere near thinking about that. He's at 968 wood, though. We can see that transition to farms is going to be quite juicy when he hits castle himself. But look at all those archers being a little bit out of position, knowing that the full army isn't here, and this looking that good for Dragovan is pretty scary for Scatterbrain right now.
Yeah, I mean, Dragovon, just because of his fishing got compromised, right? He's floating all of that wood. He was supposed to make a lot of archers with it, but that didn't end up being the case, right? Because that fishing ended up going away, so he's going to have to pull some villagers, get them somewhere. Getting a good raid on the western side, lots of idle time. You can see, just like you said, Whamen, you can see Scatterbrain hoarding those resources. But is that going to be his downfall, right? When you click up to the Castle Age, that's 1,800 resources you could have used on an army, and now you didn't. So is this Dragovon's time to strike? If he's able to scout and sees with that wing going up, he's like, okay, it's put up or shut up time. As of right now, he's just building as much as he can. He's trying to get that military mass as much as he can because he has a small window where Dragovon can actually close this game out if he hits the right timing.
And Scatterbrain hoarding 1,500 food, basically, is just showing us exactly what he hasn't been able to do, and that's make units here. You can see he's still making archers. He's struggling to get those numbers because we can see he pulled off of wood a little bit too much because of those horses that were in his woodline. But these archer numbers, now they don't care that much about archer ships. They're just going to take it down. The Springald ship also in danger. He does get a few shots off, but this is a lot of good damage. And now that pressure on the water is going to start to pay off. He needs to get the ship down so that he can control the water here. And this is looking very favorably for Beasty's first team game for today. He's down 2 right now, and this is going to be so important for them to stay alive. We see that Scatterbrain did click up. He went for the Culture Wing. But guys, when you're going for that Culture Wing, it's cheaper, but you don't get anything out of it. He needs to make sure that he's ready to do something with that. And he is getting a little bit of gold, but we do see a purple blob there in the north. So the second gold, he's definitely being pushed off of.
Yeah, I really like you talked about the Culture Wing because it's cheaper as he gets that back gold. Isn't as safe as he thought it was. The Culture Wing, it is cheaper, and it finishes quicker, right? The Iabids, when they first came out, the Culture Wing was the rave because of how quick it was, and you were really able to set the tone. But you're exactly right. You're getting nothing. You're just getting a faster age time. I think it was probably better for him to do that because he wasn't able to go up full price. So I think this was just a panic Culture Wing, you know, to the point where, yeah, he's going to hit Castle Age, but he needs upgrades. He's going to try to get some kind of Castle Age units to really help him out. But Dragavon is also hoarding resources. Look at how much he's got right now. Almost 1,000 food, almost 600 gold. So he's going to meet him there pretty shortly. So that tempo that the Iabids really wanted out of that Culture Wing, I don't think it's going to get there if Dragavon's able to hit that button soon.
And the problem is, even if he doesn't hit the button, he's doing so much damage against Scatterbrain here. A lot of these villages going down. We see 31 total going down, keeping in mind that some of those were fishing ships, but a lot more of those are villagers. We can see that villager difference between these two players, almost at 20 now. Culture Wing has been clicked up with Dragavan, and this could just mean some lovely little dervishes ready to heal up that army. So, oh no, wait, this is Abbasid. Oh, Culture Wing is completely different. This means Imperial Age is cheaper, doesn't it, Tim?
It does. If he,
Oh, no.
if he has the presence of mind to do that, it's definitely a shock and awe tactic. If he definitely hits that, because again, that's a lot of resources you could spend on an army. Dragavon is continuing, even though he has the tech disadvantage, right, of being in feudal versus castle, he still has, well, not only 31 worker kills. Look at that villager count. Remember, Iabid's got +3. Now he's down about 20. So that's an issue. But also now he just has to make sure whatever tech superiority Scatterbrain has, it doesn't pay off. He's getting the veteran archer upgrade, and that just got completed. And he's getting some Ghulams as well for a little bit of front line. But Scatterbrain, he's not going to have enough Ghulams for this to make a difference. He's got 2. He's got 1 in the queue. But Dragavon's got another half a minute. So he can back up. He can make sure he doesn't take a fight that loses him the game. And I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, and we can see with those Ghulams coming out, they're great, right? But they're not that great in small numbers, and when you're facing this many archers. As we've seen many of these top players do, they just micro and they target fire those Ghulams as needed. And with 1,140 gold, even though Dragavan is pushed off of gold right now, it's not bad. He's still going to be able to get all those upgrades. He's still going to be able to click every upgrade he needs for his units without being too compromised. And let's see what that first upgrade is. I'm expecting to see a lot of archers. There we go. The archers are being upgraded. And this should be quite a hard thing to deal with. He does get the upgrade as well there for the technology to be a little bit cheaper before getting the rest of these upgrades. 240, okay, 300 gold now, just to make sure that he has more for those upgrades. And I guess his villagers just went to the back now because there are so many units at the front of his base here. And Scatterbrain does get that chance to also try and get the upgrades he needs, but honestly, the upgrades he needs, I don't think they're in this game. Maybe next game.
I was going to say, yeah, he might need to wait to game 2 to get one of those. And Dragavon's army is actually rather impressive. This is one of the things, the pros and cons of the Abbasid and the Iabids aging up is you don't take any villagers to build the landmark so you can continue to create resources and make units. But Dragavon wants to take this fight. He's waiting for those Castle Age upgrades to come in. Veteran archers do come in, so they might be able to do some pretty good damage against these Ghulams. Horsemen's making the front line against those Ghulams, which might not be the most advantageous, but as long as those archers aren't the ones that are going to get compromised, and look at how much the ranged mass that Dragavon has, plus the Navy on the back end, we didn't even see that, plus the Navy on the back end, Dragavon, this is an easy cleanup, and Whamen, I think this is your ball game.
I feel like Dragavan has surprised most people here, because most people thought that Scatterbrain, it was going to have a little bit of an edge here, but Dragonman putting up a very, very strong game one, and I felt like Scatterbrain even took that fight as well as he could have. Dragonman not focusing the units to trade optimally wasn't even enough because he just had so many more, and maybe that's probably why he was just going straight for the face and not caring too much about where the horses were focusing. Now, this is it for Scatterbrained in this game. What does he take away from this? Now that Dragovan, he's known for his plays on Abbasid. He's actually, a lot of people would say that's like his one-trick pony kind of civilization that he does, but usually we don't see this much of a standard game from Dragovan, and honestly, it looked amazing. He looked like he knew exactly what to do, and I'm sure that is due to his coach also helping on the background. But you can see that Dragovan knows how to control his units. He knows how to attack at the top and the bottom. He knows how to pressure on different sides. So Scatterbrain needs to go into the next one being very aware that Dragovan might have more up his sleeve.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right with Dragovan and the Abbasid. We've seen him play against some of the best, using Clown Car with some of the Rams if he was able to do it. But, you know, for Scatterbrain, maybe he's like, hey, you know what? I kind of expected to lose this game. Then we'll kind of pick it up at game 2. Even though Scatterbrain's not officially out of it yet, we didn't see the surrender, but looking at that military, looking at that eco, it's going to prove to be a little difficult, and I don't even get to finish the sentence. Whamen, Scatterbrain's like, I'm done with this. You can have Kurlager. We're just going to move on to game number 2. No more Abbasid for Dragovan. So he's gonna get the momentum. He's gonna set the tone for this series. Let's see if it carries into the rest of the series.
And I know a lot of people are asking, like, who are these players? Now, these players are people we've seen in a lot of the top 32, top 16 plays, but a lot of them haven't made it through that far. And that's probably now the one time where they will get that opportunity to do that. So we'll definitely see a little bit of what these two players have in store for us in the future. And this tournament, the whole setup with it, the idea is for these top players to lead these others, to make sure that they can grow and see what they could be doing better real time. So with the resources gathered, we can see Dragovan just being very, very far ahead for most of this. And that's just the superiority of that Ram we saw that early game. Just to make sure that you have that Ram shutting down that dock and it's snowballing from there. Those 3 villages that Scatterbrained lost as well that early on definitely set the pace a little bit in Dragovan's favor.
Yeah, I mean, we alluded to it a little bit once Dragovan hit Feudal Age, but the tempo that you get on a hybrid map from Military Wing is crazy because in Dark Age, you're sacrificing a little bit of tempo for the eco, right? You're getting a dock, you have to gather a bunch of wood to make your fishing boats, and then you age up. So it's that, you know, your Feudal Age timing gets delayed by a little bit of time. So Dragovan makes up for that time with the Military Wing, right? Getting those military units, getting that land presence. So it's a really good, the Abbasid is really, really good in terms of sacrificing that tempo. And we even see it on land maps, sacrificing that tempo a little bit and then getting it back with a huge power spike. Because you see the Abbasid, when they go Eco Wing, they make multiple town centers on land too. So that's definitely an option. But no more Abbasid for
Noble
Dragovan. We
land.
have, oh my God. There's more water. I didn't bring my water wingies.
No,
Were
no,
you not expecting that one?
I did not expect that. I guess my question is just, can you swim?
I can. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
actually a pretty
okay.
good swimmer. Yeah.
Okay, that's good because these two are taking us on a journey and it's going straight into water, which I'm so happy about because most players, when they're playing here, they don't prefer not to go for the water. The water is the sneaky play. It's the plays you see coming out of Vortex and Lucifron. It's the Puppypaws and the Whams of the world. You don't see this much water from, from the rest of the players because when you're learning, most of the stuff you're learning, it's going to be working on land. Water is a whole different ball game because understanding how to transition your economy is a lot harder. But I do think that with the right person in your ear, it does become a lot easier.
And back on the data screen that we had, the statistics page at the end of the game, APM was there. And
Mm-hmm.
Dragovan had about 360. So as long as he's making the correct decisions, as long as he's using a SteelSeries Alias microphone so he can understand what's going on, he will have the potential to communicate with his coach via the microphone and be able to execute He has the APM to execute. So let's see if game number 2, if he's able to do that. Dragavon playing as the Chinese in the color purple, Scatterbrain as the Japanese in the color yellow. We're on Holy Island, Whamen. Even though, you know, this is our second map with water, I'm a really big fan of this map just because the land gets condensed, so it makes for a little bit of fighting. And the water, it's only one body of water. So you end up having to split your attention in a bunch of different ways.
I love this map purely because I've seen the craziest comebacks on it, even when people don't have the water. I feel like the water on this map always just promises an awful, anxiety ridden experience for anyone watching. And I can imagine the players are feeling that too. But the moment the land shenanigans joins the fight, it gets way worse. And that action packed type of map is exactly what I think Dragvan and Scatterbrain want each other to experience. Because, hey, I'm going to try to overwhelm you. And I want you guys to notice Dragavan instantly going again for that villager. He is making sure that he's putting that pressure on that villager in the early game. And yes, the scout won't be able to kill it, but it does set it up for being sniped a little bit later. Now, Scatterbrain is playing Japanese, and Japanese is a really, really good hybrid map civilization. Because they do have the dock that they can disable early game as well. But I feel like Dragavan is going to be ready for this, because with China, you do have that extreme power with the Imperial official, just making sure that you boost that economy a little bit. But I know that there's a 0 IO opening on some of the maps. I just don't know if that's on water as well.
Yeah, you know, you did a really good job because I wanted to do this also because we probably have, because we're on twitch.tv/SealSeries, we probably have a lot of people who might be new to the game, right? So when you're playing a water map, you got to be thinking, hey, what are some good water civs? There are some good ones that are better than others. And you hit the nail on the head as the reason why. Japanese, with their feudal age landmark, Koka Township, getting those shinobis, you got a bunch of ninjas running around, and they can sabotage docks, making sure Navy doesn't get produced. Also, for the Japanese, you got to think about their fishing boats are cheaper. You don't need to put as much on wood to get constant fishing boat production in Dark Age. So what does that mean? You age up quicker, you get better tempo. Chinese on the other side, just like you talked about with the Imperial officials, every time you drop off 10 wood to a lumber camp, it counts as 12. I don't know how it happens. I don't know if there's some kind of conjuring experience with the supervision. I think these IOs need to be burned at the stake for some reason. But there's a potential and the efficiency for them to drop off 12. It just means that wood economy, what does that mean? More boats. But if the Japanese could sabotage that, the Chinese can get as much wood as they want. If they can't produce the boats, it's just going to sit in their inventory.
And that's exactly why we see so many early plays from Japanese to get that second dock on the map, or any civilization playing against the Japanese, because you only get that first shinobi for free. The next one you gotta pay for. And once you force your opponent to start spending gold and food on those bad boys, it becomes a little bit easier to add your own docks, make your own ships, and force your opponent to keep making units that he probably doesn't want to keep making, because he wants to be focusing on the water battle. So Scatterbrain definitely has the Joker in his deck, and he needs to be able to use it effectively. But Dragvan, he just needs to pump out as many as possible. We do see a forced drop off there from Scatterbrain as well now, which means, oh, one food missing. There we go. The Goka Township does get clicked. No surprises here. So we will be seeing those shinobis scattered around the map trying to stop these things. But now let's see Dragavan. He's most likely just going to go for his normal Chinese age up. I don't think we'll be seeing a Barbican anywhere crazy, especially this early on, because you do want to get those Imperial officials. Imperial Academy gets placed down. And this is because you want to make sure that you get that early supervision on the wood. The second dock being dropped now from Scatterbrained. I'm expecting Dragavan to follow suit pretty soon as well.
Yeah, love the idea with 2 docks. I mean, obviously, while you're aging up, it's going to be effective. You're not really making fishing boats anymore. You have a decent amount. And if you do, maybe just 1 or 2 little extra, right? But having the amount of fishing boats that he has, it looks like about 6 or 7, this should sustain you in the food department. You know, not only do you have to make some boats, if you can hover over actually the Springold ship in a dock, Cal, if you don't mind, it's really important. And the reason why the water changes, I think, were pretty effective is because those Springold ships, they cost food too. You need the crew to man the ships. So the fishing boats end up playing a bigger role, right? You're not just hoarding your food. You need it for a little bit of a navy. So that's super important. So you need food, you need wood, you need gold in order to do it. Dragavon hitting fuselage first before Scatterbrain, and we'll be getting an arrow ship. I'm very curious to see what Scatterbrain goes for. Usually second. You expect an arrow ship coming at you, so hopefully he clicks the springled ship button, and then away we go. So with the Coca Township getting completed, just like Whamen said, that first Shinobi will be free, and they are quite the expensive unit. You gotta, I mean, when you're getting people through ninja school, you're obviously going to be in debt a little bit. So 60 food, 60 gold are going to be those Shinobi. That first one getting free is really going to help you set the tone. Scatterbrain going for that springled ship second as well. So let's see about this APM, right? The Shinobi, they're a really good unit. When they sabotage, they can do some damage, they can do whatever. But if you don't have the APM, those ninjas are just going to sit there. But this one is very actively sprinting his way across the map, looking to get a quick sabotage.
Yeah, the problem is, once you have those Shinobis on the map, yes, they can go sabotage the docks, but it doesn't stop there, right? These guys have such a land presence, and when you're looking at that gold from Dragavan, it is on the south there. The wood line, both of them being forward, so these guys are going to be able to put that pressure into these resource points that they need to do. The Shinobi is coming in hot. Let's see if that ship makes it out. The sabotage was just a little bit too late. The fishing boat makes it out. But honestly, I think Dragavan here was a bit greedy. He went for an extra fishing boat instead of going for a military ship. And maybe that's just because the military ship takes a little bit longer to pop out. But even just a delay like that can be very, very expensive on water. A lot of the pro players know that you are supposed to just produce, and push out. And I feel like Dragavan getting that extra fishing ship could have slowed him down a bit, but it looks like Scatterbrain, he's not constantly producing either. The food is a little bit floaty at the moment, and the wood not giving him enough to constantly produce. We do see another ship now in queue, and it is another spring-old ship, but demolition coming out from Dragavan, and this is where I think things start to change. Because Dragavan and Scatterbrain, both of these players, they might be okay with water, especially with someone guiding you, but do they know how to micro these ships? And that's going to be the key here. It's going to be so, so important to be able to do that right. It doesn't look like Shinobi got the sabotage off either. He just lost that one for... Oh, no. For nothing.
What for nothing. What are the... Sorry, that got me. One of the important nuances for the Shinobi also when you're going to sabotage the dock, as we saw there, in order to sabotage, the Shinobi needs to go through its full animation for it to close. So if you do things like cancel that animation midway through and start walking because you want to preserve its life, you end up sabotaging a bunch of bupkis. And that's exactly what happened with that dock over there. So those docks will be preserved for just a little bit of time. With those Shinobi, the reason Dragavan and why I'm very impressed with his play right now is he knows the Shinobi are going to be the problem, right, for sabotage. So what does he do? He gets 1 or 2 arrow ships because Shinobi don't have that ranged armor, right? You get 1 or 2 of those arrow ships, so every time a Shinobi comes to the sabotage, he's putting himself in harm's way.
Now, the Shinobis are such... They're just the bread and butter of Japanese, especially in the early game, but I don't feel like Scatterbrain got control out of those Shinobis like he needed to. He still has 2 on the map, and Dragavan has been really smart about putting those towers in very good positions to make sure that they cannot get the damage done. Now, the archery range does get scouted there, as Cal's showing us. Scatterbrain does know that there are going to be archers coming out of Dragavan. And we do see some spearmen as well. With the horsemen coming in from Scatterbrain, that's going to be such an important part of this, because the land presence is going to be so difficult to deal with if everything you have is just on water. More demo ships being created now from Dragavan, and this might mean a little bit of a push coming out soon enough.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's trying to catch Scatterbrain off guard. You know, if Dragavan comes in with 4 or 5 demo ships, he takes a land battle at the same time, because that's what these really good players do. They take battles on multiple different fronts. It splits your opponent in multiple different angles. So if he's able to do that, maybe coordinate some kind of attack. But look at how many women, look how many demo ships that he's queuing up. I know it's December. It's not the 4th of July. So the amount of fireworks that he's going to have is really uncharacteristic for around Christmas time.
Dragavan doesn't care about the time of year. We know this man loves to make sure that there are explosions all around the map. Be that archers popping out of units, be that ships coming from all directions. with these demo ships, he doesn't just need to run into an army, but he's also going to have the opportunity to run into docks. So if he chooses to do so, and we do see the first demo ship coming out from Scatterbrain soon, he could have a juicy connect there as well, but these ships are going to go straight for the army. This is really scary because he doesn't have enough galleys to deal with these either, and he does try to split them off a little bit. He doesn't get that connection, and Dragoman wants to play it safe, but now they're looking to go for them again, and they're going straight for it. A few of them do get picked off, and the trade's not looking as juicy as he'd want to, but he does make a few steady connections.
I mean, you did say a few of them got picked off, but I think 6 of the 7 ended up getting picked off. And exactly like that, there's a little bit of an attack as well from Dragovon trying to get in there. So he was trying to do the demo ship play plus a little bit of raiding. It looks like his raiding is going to be more effective than the demo ship play was. But those demo ships, they bunched up, right? They were all together. And with those arrow ships having that little bit of, I call it like pseudo AoE because of how many arrows kind of jettison out, you're able to take multiple out at the same time. 5 of them ended up going down before he was near any kind of Scatterbrain ship at all. So Scatterbrain was able to repel this, which is very good. But he lost a couple villagers in the process. 2 villagers ended up going down for him, which might not be that big of a deal, but maybe it helps with a little bit of idle time and the like as well. So now there's a point where people are making, both of these players are making army on land. Both of them are making army on navy. When does the first player kind of budge and try to go for Castle Age is the question.
Now, with Scatterbrained and his shipping situation here, we can see just there's a ton of Springles. I don't think he has that choice soon. And I don't know if he knows that because he's floating some resources looking at Castle. And that's still a lot of demo ships that can come through. He does get another 2 galleys queued up. So this is going to mean he's going to try to focus fire them. But if Dragoman can split these bad boys up, they can cost him a lot. Scatterbrain floating more and more, so it does look like he's thinking about Castle pretty soon. Those demo ships not making any of the heaviest connections they can, but one does make it go through and cause a little bit of havoc here. Now we do see Dragovan on land, though. He is absolutely dominating there into a woodline pretty soon. But the war on water starts to look a little bit scary. Those Springald ships in the masses that Scatterbrain has them, they deal okay with what Dragovan is offering.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell with what Dragovan's doing, he's definitely has some all-in potential in feudal, right? He's not trying to hoard resources. He's not trying to whatever. And he definitely got rid of Scatterbrain's attempt to go to Castle Age, right? Because now he just queued a bunch of units. He added Yumi. He's adding some Shinobi. He added some Horsemen. So he was trying to hoard. And then probably there was a coach in his ear, right? He probably had MarineLord in his ear being like, no, he's going to be going up. Or he's going all in on the other side. You got to make units or you're dead. And that's exactly what happens. Dragovon trying to get in on the fishing boats and does get a bunch of them. But Dragovon, there's a lot of resources that were left exploding on the map. How many demo ships that we've counted that ended up getting hit by a lot of the arrow ships that the Japanese have? So this demo might get a pretty good contact shot, and it does. A couple hulks end up becoming shipwrecks, or Springald ships, I should say. And Dragovon now with the military lead, 48-40, he might be able to set the tone on water while he's doing raiding. So overall, I'm really impressed with what Dragovon's doing.
Now, Dragovan realized, okay, I'm not microing those demolition ships too well into the army. Let me just go for the eco. Because that type of eco hit is still pretty devastating. Because when you're thinking about Castle, when you're floating that type of gold as well, you cannot afford to lose anything. And now, this is just going to open it up to more. We can see these guys just coming in, getting a few fishing ships along the way. Now, 14 total going down. We do see alarms all around the map. That purple mass running around the map there at the bottom as well. Just dividing that attention is so important because we see 15 village difference right now, but the demolition ship coming from the other side, really, really scary. And Scatterbrain does look like he has more ships here, and that one is about to get a very juicy shot off. 3 or 4 ships end up going down. Disgusting.
Do you see the difference in the micro, though, Whamen? Because Dragovon he was looking to try to just beat his head against the wall, right? And add 6 or 7 demo ships, and you're like, yeah, you're probably going to get half of them to contact. Let's just dive them in there. Scatterbrain didn't do that. He had the demo ships a little bit in the back, and then it had to go through that navy. Oh, my God, another big one. Scatterbrain's not paying attention. Oh, my God. He got a little bit of initiative with the demo hits that he was having before, and I was just about to tell him how good his micro was. Not so much. On the flip side, Dragovan's got a bunch of archers that are getting hits from horsemen. They're getting hits from shinobis and Yuumi on the other side. Dragovan looked like he was in the driver's seat in this game. Now his landmass is cleaned up. He got a lot of good hits, or he got hit with some of those demo ships. Scatterbrain's going to take it to him on land now.
The problem is Dragovan did amazing damage over there in the wood line, and he caused a lot of idle time. But at what cost now? We do see those towers getting plopped down in the wood line at the speed of light. He realizes I am in danger, because if this wood line gets shut down, he's going to struggle making more ships. But more demolition ships about to collapse, and a very juicy hit. Another one, and the next ones are going to be right on top of that eco. He does get a few shots off, but the demo ships, they come back for a little bit more, and he has to micro these a little bit better. Wow, pretty good shot there from Dragovan, but now this is looking scary. Let's see if the towers are going to provide enough protection.
You know, because these are fuel-age units, Whamen, those 4 towers, they're going to be enough. Most of what Scatterbrain has, because he has a bunch of Yuumi, he has some Shinobi. He only has about 4 or 5 horsemen, so it's not like he could torch them down, right? So that actually proved to be very effective, just creating a little bit of idle time. Dragovan is continuing to rain his special version of Fiery Hell on to Scatterbrain. Explosive Junk with 1 health, the Naval Arrow Slits will be able to take it down. And probably that Arrow Slits, that passive stone from the Japanese, is what's keeping Scatterbrain into this game. You can't just camp near a dock and start taking it down with spring-load ships. Not going to be the case. So those Naval Arrow Slits are going to make sure that he can continue to produce. But at what point, just because a lot of what Dragovan has is mostly Navy, at what point does Scatterbrain end up giving up? Because there's a point where you're trying to make as many ships as you can, but is this just sunken cost fallacy, pun intended, with the sunken? Are you making enough Navy and they're just going to end up dying anyway?
And that seems to be the case, because Scatterbrain is making more and more Navy. He knows he cannot stop here. And the thing about Dragovan's army is most of his army is on water right now. So that count is not a fair representation. The villagers do get pulled off of here from gold. He does have enough gold to age up the... Oh, beautiful hit here by Dragovan. He shuts down even more workers behind this. And now we can see that is one massive difference. But the other difference is food here. Scatterbrain doesn't have a food source right now. That's a lot of fishing boats that just went down. Those villagers staying alive. It looks like the Yuumi were firing, but they just couldn't do enough damage to take that one villager down. No villagers lost in that raid. And this is looking scarier and scarier for Scatterbrain.
Yeah, you can see kind of how important the fishing eco is, right? Because Cal hovered over there on the northeastern part of the map, or I should say the northern part of the map, and how many boats, how many fishing boats that Dragovan actually has. His food per minute, comparatively, once all of those fishing boats end up dropping, we're going to see it pay off probably in about a minute or two, is insane. And he's actually sending more villagers onto food. He's sending more to that deer pack, so he knows he needs food to get up to Castle Age. He's going to be able to do that. Now with Scatterbrain having those big Navy problems, having those hits, can Dragovan end up really closing this game out in Castle Age? We talked about him being, oh yeah, he's Abbasid, he's one trick, he's this, he's that. I don't really think so. Dragovan's really taking it to him as the Chinese, with how many villagers he's going to get on the Imperial Palace. That's going to go up in the blink of an eye. And then Castle Age units are coming up with a fishing economy. I don't like how long Scatterbrain's got left in this one.
Yeah, Scatterbrain definitely underestimated the ability of Dragovan here to survive on land when hitting that age up. And we see Dragovan spending all that gold instantly. Now, about the Chinese, you guys know... before we say anything, let's watch these ships explode. The demolition ships not getting their connections off too well. They do flank a little bit, and one might make it through, but that Dow is doing amazing work at cleaning it up. Scatterbrain does what he can with what he's got here. And the reverse could come in, but not enough. There's too many spring-load ships to target fire it down. And another doe. And I was about to say, this gold that he had enough to go and use it. And be able to get those upgrades, but he's using them on demolition ships. And that's probably a pretty good call here. One gets a beautiful connection, though, and this is a lot of pressure here from Scatterbrain, because he knows he's on a timer. And even though he's killed no more villagers, he's getting a little bit of idle time, and I just don't think it's going to be enough, because those lances are out in the field, and they honestly don't take much damage. Especially
against those Yuumis, right? Because, I mean, the Yuumi's base attack, it's less than an archer, it's 4. He does have Steeled Arrow, so it ends up being 5, but the Lancer ranged armor, assuming if Iron Undermesh was gotten, they're not going to be able to take any hits. Like, you're going to be shooting marshmallows at him as those Yumi get cleaned up. Pretty quickly, military count still going in favor of Dragavan, and that was the kicker, right? Scatterbrain needed to make some damage on water. He needed to make some damage on land because Dragavan paid for Castle Age. It ended up not being effective, so Scatterbrain's going to try to get there, try to get to his own Castle Age while he's doing some raiding with some horsemen. But because of the food economy of Dragavan, he's sitting on 2,000 food per minute, Whamen. He's going to be able to make a lot of Lancers, and he's going to be able to take this game over.
Yeah, but the thing is as well, Scatterbrain realizing a little bit too late, like, hey, I need to do villager damage. And he does get a little bit of damage here. He gets 11 villager kills since that last time he killed Vills. But this is a little bit too late, as we can see. 25 villager difference now. Floating gate does get clicked up, and he can suspend that thing in air, but he's not going to have the resources to actually sustain this. Cal pointed out a little bit earlier that gold is about to expire. It has been mined through, and the next gold is going to be quite far from the base. And especially now with these units running free on the map, Scatterbrain is going to have a really hard time cleaning them up.
Yeah, I mean, it does help that gold is in the back a little bit, but knowing Holy Island, you pretty much have all of this area scouted. So that outpost will probably not be long for this world. The villagers are trying to back up. Scatterbrain's sitting on 57 economic count and trying to get to that gold on the backside. I don't think Dragavan's going to see that floating gate go up. However, that floating gate, he's looking for Scatterbrain, he's looking for that golden gate to save him, right? Usually for a floating gate, when you get that up, you want to set the tempo. You want to set the control. Now he's just trying not to die. And I don't know with that Yoroshiru, I mean, yeah, it might go into stable for some mounted samurai, but he's just not going to have enough to deal with this. Villagers going down, the eco's not there. Scatterbrain has a decent amount of spearmen, which will go down quickly to these archers if they don't go back into the town center, and it looks like they won't. And Scatterbrain won't be making that Castle Age pay off. Game number 2 going to Dragavan. And now, based on the score, if I remember correctly, the series is tied 6-6. Is that correct?
Exactly. And this is probably something MarineLord did not want to see happening today. MarineLord was very confident in his team here. And it looks like Dragavan is definitely doing a lot of damage to that. I was speaking to Beasty about this a little bit earlier. I think he was under the impression that he could get 2 or 3 games in the series with Dragavan. So Dragavan already starting out pretty strong. And we can see with those resources gathered again, just like last game, he was looking good. He did lose his military there, as we could see the red stop being in the lead there for a short moment, but it quickly recovered with that very, very strong economy. And just like you said with the Japanese and their passive stone, it definitely kept them in the game for a little bit longer. So, yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, you think Dragavan is being competent. You know, he's really holding his own. I say he's being dominant. You know, like these 2 games, there was I didn't feel like there was any point in the game that he was in a losing position. Take a look at some of these Steel Series replays that we got here. Dragavan trying to get a little bit of damage to those villagers. They panicked, make a lumber camp over there on the east side. That's a lot of idle time, right? They're moving around. You might not get that many kills, maybe just a couple, but it's all about those villagers running for their lives instead of gathering resources. And that's probably about 20 so of those villagers. Big fight on the Japanese side with naval arrow slits, helping them out. But you can see based on the micro, I'm glad we went back to this. You can see based on the micro with the demo ships that Scatterbrain was doing, I really liked his job here as 4 of those Springald ships went out because he kept those demos in the back, right? So then they just got lost in where all of the ships were. Dragavan didn't do that. That demo ship just ends up coming out. Dragavan using fireworks to try to take down one of those docks, and that was Scatterbrain's real time to do some damage. Didn't end up being that effective as the Yumi got cleaned up as well.
And that just shows Scatterbrain was able to micro a little bit better there on the water, but Dragavan's dominance in the early game set the pace for the game. And honestly, really well played here by Dragavan. And I need to issue an official apology for even hinting at Dragavan being a one-trick pony, because after that, Dragavan, damn! I am so impressed with him. I honestly, Dragovan is one of the most interesting cases of players for me in our community because he's one of the people I met his family when we were at King of the North as well, and they're so supportive of him. I've never seen a family rally behind someone like his family does behind him. And honestly, Dragovan is a kid that is at this very young age showing so much potential, and he's like reinvented the wheel with a few of the builds, and he knows how to execute it. And I think this type of exposure where he now sits with one of the best players, and like all of these players, they get an opportunity to get coached by the best of the best. This is the chance to actually see, hey, I'm going to be improving this. This is what I need to be working on. This is what I've been lacking. And I think Dragovan is getting that opportunity right now. And honestly, with a map like Mountain Clearing, I think you're going to need a lot of coaching in your ear because that's going to be a Roos versus Ayubids. And wow,
It's
Tim.
I'm really a fan of this series right now, regardless of what the score is, because they're picking maps that generate chaos. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Kurlager, Holy Island, you got to be all over the place. Mountain Clearing, you don't necessarily need to be all over the place because the map is that small.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're really focused on one particular area, but the chaos continues to remain. It's very interesting to see these picks. I know a lot of Roos here. Ayubids, though, have you seen Ayubids on Mountain Clearing? Because I feel like this is my first time.
Definitely not. I don't know if the what the plan is here, but I have a feeling that the mobility is going to be key here. When you have Aeobids on a map like this, you do need to keep in mind that they have these camels, and yes, you're playing against a night civilization, so camels do pretty well against them. But the woodline is very far from the TC. So it does open you up to a lot of raiding if you are a little bit greedy with that Kremlin that is a little bit more forward. Yesterday, I was listening to Beastie and Vortex and how they were going on at it. And I remember Beastie telling Vortex that Louis is the kind of guy that would put the Kremlin in the middle of the map, so be careful. And honestly, I wouldn't expect anything less of Mr. Scatterbrained here. So the problem is, if you do something like that, you do open up your whole woodline for raiding. So a lot of the games that we saw before was people rushing to the middle, trying to get control of the middle and winning from there. With siege changes, that's no longer possible. We can't get to a point where you have a keep in the middle or you have the Kremlin in the middle and get to castle and just defend yourself with 2 or 3 springals. Now you actually have to be active on the map. So I think all those cheeses we saw from past is not going to be as prominent anymore, just because we've gotten to that point where things are pretty much a unit on unit game. Thank you very much, devs, for killing the siege meta. I appreciate you.
You know, I don't really, I'm not sure if they killed the siege meta or if it just gets delayed. Because
Okay.
then you get to a point where Imperial, you have a bunch of mangoes and they're all just, firing rocks off at each other for the most part. But it's interesting to pick Ayubids on this map. And the reason why I ask is because for the Rus, you could kind of understand why they would put a Kremlin in the center, right? Not only do you get a
Hmm.
sacred site, but the boar, right? The boars are really good. It gives you that bounty. It gives you, you get 10 for each that you actually, or you get 1 gold. Oh my God, I'm losing it. You get 1 gold every 10 hunted food that you gather, right?
Hmm.
So with the boar having 2,200, not only are you getting that food at the fastest rate, you're getting 220 gold for free, right? So that
Hmm.
could help you get to castle age and all that kind of stuff. So you understand why you're taking that risk. For the Ayubids, you can't get that boar. It's haram. So can you have the ability, like, you're trying to go for the center of the map, but besides the sacred site, there's nothing there for you. Why would you do that? So maybe that gives Scatterbrain the opportunity to be like, hey, this might get uncontested. Maybe Ayubids don't want to spend the resources on trying to contest that middle because it's not really worth it for them anyway. We'll see what the plan is for this game number 3. Is Dragovon on his way to a 5-0? That's yet to be seen. Scatterbrain on Team MarineLord playing as the Russo, the color yellow. Dragovon in the color purple as the Ayubids on Team Beastie. And you can take a look where that middle of the map is. You can see it. There's the boar, there's the sacred site, and a nice little religious artifact if you get cheeky enough.
Yeah, this map spawn is definitely, I think, really good for Rus in general because, as you know, as you just said about the boar and everything, the Kremlin allows you to do something crazy like that, to take control of the middle of the map with your landmark. But at the same time, you're pretty much safe getting into the later game when you run low on gold, because with Rus, you do have that hunting cabins all around the map just taking care of you. But now Dragovan on Aeobids, let's see if he's going to let this thing get to late game. I expect Dragovan to be a cheeky little castle pusher, taking down anything in his path, especially with those camel lances. House of Wisdom being put down now, and let the games begin. But now, when looking at these spawns, though, I want everybody to take a moment and see what we're dealing with here. The big gold, for those of you who haven't played this map much, the big gold very close to the TC, very safe. We see the berries also, everything is quite safe. You can push the deer pack pretty close to the TC as well. As you can see there with Mr. Dragovan and his scout rotating back and forth. But now, as we can see here, the wood lines are very, very far away. And that's where Rus kind of shines here as well. So Rus having a very mobile army usually, they can sneak in there and punish you for going out there. But this depends on what Dragovan allows, because Dragovan himself, he's also a player who loves to micro units. But after watching Scatterbrain do his thing on the water, I would be so excited to see what Scatterbrain can do with this. So the deer now being killed, and finally, these bad boys are going to be the safest food source in all the lands for Mr. Dragovan. And this is a lot of food.
Oh yeah, I mean, one of the best things for mountain clearing, and the reason why I feel like Roos is a very good pick, is everything is so compact with your other resources. Your gold, your stone is very close to the town center, and I understand the wood lines are a little bit farther away. But with a defensive Kremlin, right, you can protect your gold, you can protect stone, and you can protect wood lines and add as a wooden fortress as well. You can see how good those hunting cabins can be if you get them in nice little areas, right? But Scatterbrain not going for that kind of defensive play by any stretch of the imagination. He's getting those 8 villagers, pulling them on the boar, not losing a villager, very good with his micro. And I would imagine gonna plop a Kremlin right down next to it. Boom! There you go. Sacred Site, gonna add a little bit in the favor of Scatterbrain. And also, you have a big gold that's there all too. So if you wanted to get gold from that source, if you wanted to pull villagers and go over there, you have this stronghold. But like you said, Whamen, this Kremlin not protecting the wood lines. And it's very important when you're playing against a Rus player. If they put that Kremlin out there, just like China, if they put a Barbican out there, it means their base is very raidable. So maybe Dragovan can do some damage in Feudal even.
Honestly, this is the first time we've seen a Kremlin this aggressive in this whole tournament. Everybody has been very, very conservative with this guy, but it does allow for so much choice, I would say here. Like you said with the gold, he can just pull them off. He could go get a little bit of gold, stay on the ball, get all that food. And this will allow him to either go for knights, fight this in feudal, or even go for a fast castle himself. And I don't think Dragovan will be able to do much about that. But guys, keep in mind, Dragovan did go for his dervish wing. Now, what makes this really important in feudal age is making sure that you have those dervishes to heal up units that are being attacked or are taking damage across the map. The other thing you can do is put them into position for that fast castle. And looking at those resources on Dragovan's side, I smell a fast castle and it stinks.
Oh my god, Wham, I can smell it from here. He has the potential to go fast castle if he wants to. Obviously, the Roos are very good at fast castle. The boar is going to help him out and only give him that gold bounty and get that food. You know, he's going for survival techniques too, so that boar's going to be even quicker to gather from. Really like Scatterbrain's position here. You see the dervishes that are over on the south side, just doing a little bit of scouting. There's no military units to heal. He's not Castle Age, so he can't pick up relics yet. So he's just kind of figuring out what the play is from Scatterbrain. Aeobids, though, when you're talking about Castle Age, Dragovan did hit feudal. He does have those dervishes. Look how many resources he already has in the bank. He's got 700 food, almost 500 gold. So he can go up. He might be able to click it faster than Scatterbrain will be able to. So maybe Aeobids can set the tone in Castle Age. There's a little bit of flip-flop here. We're getting a lot of power spikes in Castle Age. Which power spike is going to reign supreme?
I honestly think the power spike that we're seeing most on this screen was that calculator micro of 30 plus 28, telling us exactly how much gold Scatterbrain is getting from this. Love that. But What I'm loving is Dragovan is putting those dervishes very aggressively. They're getting vision. They're thinking about their next move, and I feel like that could be a yoink incoming. It feels like this is yoink potential right under that TC. That relic we have on the screen right now, it doesn't look to be that safe. This looks like prime yoinking position. So how many yoinks are we getting today, guys? Remember, keeping in mind there are only 2 yoinks possible. Are we going to be getting a 2 out of 2 yoink or a 1 out of 2 yoink? Or 0 out of 2 yoink?
You know, I think it might be 2 out of 2 because Scatterbrain has not hit the Castle Age button yet. I get that he can age up a little bit quicker just because of how many villagers he can build on it. Goes with the high trade house and a nice spicy spot over there. Make sure you take your guess of how much gold that high trade house is going to give him in the chat. We're going to shout out whoever is the closest for that high trade house. So that little bit of gold, passive income is really going to help him. But if Dragovon gets the Castle Age, you got to think Scatterbrain too. He has to make the high trade house, right? And then he has to make a monastery, and then he has to make a warrior monk, and then he has to get the relics. Or he has to make military units and then get them and take down the dervishes, then make a monastery and then make the warrior monk. So with Dragovon, he just has the tempo to do this. I think he's going to grab both of them.
Now, Dragovan, the problem is, even though Dragovan is going to age up at an appropriate time, I do think the TC Fire has the potential to shut down at least one of these. And this might make it a little bit harder, and he has to be careful not to lose these dervishes, because if you lose them, you are putting yourself in that position as well. And as barracks coming down, does this mean we're not going to get any camel lances, but rather just the unthinkable men-at-arms type of play? We do see 4 militias being called now, and these dervishes are going to be punished for standing so close to my base. Get back. And both of these dervishes now being pushed back, not going to be able to get that initial yoink. The poor guy does back off with his tail between his legs, and it doesn't look like there might be any yoinks for the time being.
Those Kremlin gremlins really made me look like an idiot, didn't they? Just getting those 2 out of 2 yoinks. And then those militia popped out, and I was like, oh, yeah. They get militia.
I forgot about them as well. They were just like, hey, let me protect everything. And now with Dragovan getting some units, he's pretending he's opposite getting that initial 2 spearmen and a nice little set of archers. Oh, I know one of the dervishes does go down. Oh my god.
Oh my god. It's gigantic.
Wow.
I can't fit anything else on the screen. The Tower of the Sultan looks like he's got that ram. Look at that giant ram. It actually has a ram head on that Sultan. It's looking like it wants to go directly for the Kremlin. And Scatterbrain trying to make some units to provide some tempo. I don't know if he saw that tower, but he's going to see that thing wobbling over to try to take down that Kremlin in the center. First, Dervish does pick up a nice relic, but because he went Culture Wing, Whamen, and you saw that Dervish go down, again, every wing for the Ayubids is some kind of tempo swing. If you lose that Dervish, half your Culture Wing is kind of dead.
And now that he doesn't have that relic control, the dervishes did not pay off. It's still something that he already got rid of, right? So now, yes, he got his eco wing. He got perfectly he's in an okay position, right? But now, what's next? Are you gonna go for your military wing in Imperial? If we're gonna go Imperial, but apparently not. We're just going straight for the face. The dervish sitting at base, just living his best life. Now with 9 units inside. Ooh, 230 gold. Thank you, Cal. That's juicy. I thought it would be a little bit juicier. Okay, there we go. The math is being math.
I thought so too. Really quick shout out to Quaxis234 who got 232. He was relatively close. Now, because you were the closest, you win absolutely nothing, but don't forget to get yourself a Steel Series microphone. Thanks very much. Tower of the Sultan. Gonna be able to take some shots at that Kremlin, and I'll tell you, that thing packs a punch. Look at how clumsy it is, though. I don't know if they gotta like tighten the wheels up on this thing. Look at it. It's just wobbling. It's bumbling. It's stumbling. It's trying to get to the other side of the field and using those military units to create a little bit of a clown car mechanic because of that Tower of the Sultan. We talked about the Kremlin being that aggressive. This is the price that you're going to pay for it.
It is something that provides a lot of control on the map, and it's expensive though. That might be the issue here. That's a lot of investment also on top of the Sultan. but the units are below and ready to defend. These gremlins will go down as well, and well, at least now finally they do not provide any more protection as they may, and they won't get healed up either, because those more warrior monks that were going to be on the map being able to defend them, that was going to be something hard to deal with. He does lose some very expensive units though, and Scatterbrained losing these units, losing horsemen, it's going to be so difficult to deal with. I say that, and then Dragovan pulls the villagers. He pulls the villagers, they get inside, but now the villagers inside, making sure that this thing can move a little bit faster. They are trying to repair it as well, and it will stay alive. Does lose a villager in the process though, but the Kremlin is going to go down, and a second one gets popped down. I honestly did not have that on my bingo card. It just happened.
Oh my god. Well, you know, that first Tower of the Sultan, it might be a little smoking, but we do know it's a little lonely. That second one gonna come up. It looks a little bigger. I think that's the Tower of the Sultan your girlfriend says not to worry about, because it does look a little bit taller. Now, with two of those Tower of the Sultans, being able to garrison how many units you can garrison 20 each in the Tower of the Sultan. So with all of the military that Dragon's making, this is a death push from him. Because that Kremlin's down, the Rus isn't that defensive as you think they are characteristically. That Kremlin going down, you can't use the Gremlins, right? You can't pull them into your hometown center, so you don't have that defense. And now you don't have that giant defensive structure to help you. So Dragovon could just go for landmarks. He could take both of these down.
Now, Dragoman is asking himself, okay, where can I do most damage? And he's going to go straight for that high trade house, because this is where the food is at as well. Those deer are providing a massive food source here. And we see he's got his eyes on him. He knows where to go. The boys are looking chonky, and they're ready to fight this high trade house to the death. But they said, just like you need 3 rams, you need 3 of these bad boys, and that's exactly what we're going to be seeing. We do see now we're getting a siege workshop here from Scatterbrained. I'm not sure if he's going to go for some Mangonel play, but he's going to need some kind of miracle to take these bad boys down.
Like, what fresh hell is this? All these Tower of the Sultan. Now we have a triad, the Holy Trinity, if you will, with all of these towers. That high trade house is very not long for this world. Okay, as Cal takes a couple screenshots for how many there are. Scatterbrain, he's looking to try to mass up his army as best as he can. He's adding some crossbowmen, he's adding some men-at-arms. Dragovon on the other side going to be adding some crossbowmen. So just making sure those crossbowmen stay alive is going to be the problem. Well, for Dragovon, all he has to do, he could clown car with these towers, right? The towers actually do a decent amount of damage. They do a decent amount of damage to land units as well with how many arrows they fire out. So Dragovon actually switched away from the high trade house, and look at them firing their arrows out. Villagers and men-at-arms alike. Will take a while for some of these men-at-arms to go down, but we got crossbowmen on the backside just to make sure. Mangonel from Scatterbrain trying to get a good hit on those crossbowmen. Not quite the Castle Age Mangonels. Not as effective as they used to be. Villagers getting pulled out to try to get that Tower of the Sultan healed. But Whamen, I think Scatterbrain has too much military. I think he's going to hold this.
Yeah, it looks like Scatterbrain actually puts up a very decent fight here, and this is a very expensive loss as well. The crossbows just not microing them well enough, and all of them seem to be going down here. He loses those villagers that came all the way out here too. The last one is about to go down, and apparently getting a Mangonel, making enough units, was the counter after all. Now, he did do a little bit of damage, but I don't think this is going to be enough, because we can see that is a very, very scary army here from Scatterbrain. 16 men-at-arms against 5 crossbows. It's going to be a really tough fight for him to hold.
Yeah, I really wish... I'm going to shout out Holy Punisher in chat because I think he was right. I really think he probably should have taken down the high trade house. You know, getting that little bit of gold, it was... I think it was 230, right, for gold that he's getting free per minute. Taking that down and making sure that he doesn't get that passive gold could prove to be a big issue for Scatterbrain. But the high trade house staying afloat, is going to be able to continue to get all of these units. He has siege superiority with the Mangonel as well. So Dragovon, he's trying to get crossbowmen to stop these men-at-arms. He might be coming up a little bit short here. Scatterbrain has the military advantage. He's continuing to pump siege out. He has a warrior monk in queue, so he might be able to take the sacred site as well and rebuild the Kremlin. That hold might have changed the tone, obviously, in this game, but maybe in this series.
Now, this was going to be such an important point here for MarineLord's team as well, because if Dragoman went out 5-0, this could even make the last game not count for anything. Scatterbrain needed to get a point or two on the map to make sure that we get to our 15 games today. It's going to be neck and neck, especially with both of these players now having 6 points on the board. Both of these teams, they only need 7 victories from here on out. And that's a very scary army about to collapse here onto the stone. I'm wondering if the stone here is for a keep, or if we're just going to be seeing a little bit of a 2TC shenanigans going.
You know, I was kind of expecting it to be a keep because of how many villagers. And he's going back on stone on the back end just to be a little bit safer of an outcropping. So it looks like he's trying to get some kind of panic keep to come up. I don't know if he's going to necessarily have the resources to do it. Ends up backing away from the stone. Maybe he does want to add that down. Oh my God, Dragovon, just do something. Like, figure it out. I'm trying to commentate what's going on. But he has absolutely 0 food. He has 2 right now. And 0 food per minute. Those crossbowmen, those spearmen, my God, do they take a decent amount of food? That's going to be a problem. Ends up canceling that Mangonel, trying to get on the same page in terms of siege. Not going to be able to get that. Dragovon is all the way in the back of his base. And oh my God, Whamen, Tower of the Sultan and a Springald in the same game.
Now, I can't believe we're actually going to be seeing this much shenanigans, and Dragoman getting 3 Mangonels in a row means that he's just gonna... Wait, but these are Manganiques, right? I was about to comment on it, but look at those knights finding some victims, and they're still carrying stone. Those poor villagers just trying to do what they can, but they're going to be pushed off of there as well, and there's no way of getting a farm transition going here from Mr. Abitz now. This is just going to be so hard for him to actually catch up with this food. Now, that army is starting to look less and less scary because now we have 5 Springalds, which, honestly, Tim, I wouldn't have put that on my bingo card either. I don't even know why we still have Springalds. I haven't found what their use was yet. So do you know how they work?
Yeah, I mean, first I'll start by saying they don't work well. But the Springalds, they do bonus damage. They act as scorpions in AoE 2, if you're familiar with AoE 2. So it's an anti-unit weapon. It does bonus damage to melee infantry specifically. And you can see that Cow is hovering over it. If you can click on a Springald, let's see how much damage it actually does if you hover over that. So it does plus 10, 16 damage, plus 10. It shoots through. It's unit piercing. So if you have a bunch of men-at-arms coming at you, you know, the Springalds might be able to be a good idea if you have a bunch of them. But the thing is, for how good they are individually, they're quite the expensive unit, and that payoff, from what I've seen from a lot of players who have tried Springalds after the Siege patch, it doesn't have that power that you need to cut through things like Men-at-Arms. So a lot of people don't pick it.
I can definitely see why it would not be a top choice, because I feel like with the amount of Mangonels you can make, you can probably deal a lot better with these ranged armies at the back too. We do see a second TC from Scatterbrained as well, so getting into that eco planning, but a keep does get dropped down in from Dragovan. This is a very optimistic keep, because with this trebuchet here at the front, he's definitely going to struggle being able to do anything getting this up, but the Mangonels don't react, and he might actually be able to get this thing up. The crossbow's getting forward now, gonna get a little bit of damage on that trebuchet, but the Mangonels are in position to move a little bit closer to the villagers, and it does look like he's gonna get this thing up though. Keeps are not what they used to be though. They might take a lot of damage pretty easily, and he needs to find a way to defend that, but with the amount of crossbows he has, look at the Springalds finally getting a little bit of a roll here. The Mangonels firing towards the tower instead, but the Springalds are doing some work here. Manganique, baby.
That wooden fortress went down pretty quickly. Now, obviously, the Springalds do a decent amount of damage against ranged units. The problem is they don't have a lot of ranged armor. So for Siege in the new season, a certain percentage of ranged damage ends up getting reduced. So with the crossbowmen, they're kind of able to cut through that for the Springald, and because of their range, you're going to be able to target fire and take down them pretty quickly. But Kremlin does have the Springald in placement, but I don't think it's necessarily going to matter, because we got, goodness gracious, great balls of fire coming out on that Kremlin. And look at them all. Oh my God. The amount of fireworks that we've had in this series is crazy. Second time Kremlin going down. Moscow in shambles, because that Kremlin goes down yet again. And all of a sudden, Dragovon's starting to push with that siege superiority again.
And this now shows us what it could have looked like if we had a bunch of mangonels on the one side, but instead we had a bunch of springles. And I think this is showing us players are also not sure where springles fit into this meta. Cow showing us that Scatterbrain is floating a lot of wood right now. He does have a second TC, so he is going to be ahead a little bit economically, but these sacred sites, or these sacred sites, the sacred site is about to get decapped as well. And this slow push is going to start getting scarier and scarier, even though the military mass is on the side of Scatterbrain. But I want you to look at his composition switch that he's just made. He's now going for horsemen. He realizes if I'm going to deal with these mangonels or manganiques, I'm going to need to find something that actually deals with them well. And with the amount of units we see here from Dragovan, mostly being crossbows, this is probably his best choice.
Oh, absolutely. Based on the army comp, you're exactly right. Crossbowmen, mangonels, horsemen make quick work of it. But the thing of it is, he only has a few spearmen, right? Because Dragovan has been cut off from food for pretty much the last, I want to say for the last like 2 or 3, maybe 4 minutes now, you're not going to be able to get the spearmen that you need to stop these. So horsemen are going to be able to come in and do a decent amount of damage. Scatterbrain doing a little bit of a keep action. Horsemen with that flank on the north side. You can see what the crossbowmen are doing in terms of a body block. Spearmen are going to come up on that north side trying to take damage. Too many of them come out. Dragovan pulling the boys with all of these mangonels, trying to make sure those mangonels stay alive, because that's pretty much the way that he's able to get into this game. Dragovan still using the fire on the manganique, so not going to be able to do a lot of damage on the crossbowmen. Some of them do end up going down, but the horsemen on the south side, all of the spearmen ended up getting taken care of. He used villagers at a body block. It didn't prove to be as effective. And now Scatterbrain making that push. You could see all of the mangonels just popping like water balloons. Dragovan is out of this game. Mangonels, the manganiques, I should say, not being as effective as he wanted to really end that game. So it's going to go to Scatterbrain. Scatterbrain's on the board.
That was honestly so surprising. I think Dragovan also being a little bit cocky there. We saw the keep blueprint being placed down there at the end. He definitely thought, okay, I'm just going to walk into your base, put down a keep, and end this game. And I think that was just maybe reading the economy a little bit too greedily. But Scatterbrain now making sure that this graph is glowing the other side. And finally, we can see with all that food on his side, Ayubitz was suffering. Dragovan was a hungry, hungry man, and he had no way of getting food himself. So Scatterbrain definitely doing a good job at lasting, responding, and the unit compositions that he chose in the end really showed superiority.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, Dragovan used the military comp that he had to use because he was out of food. Right, he's got to pick units that make wood, that are costing wood and gold. And what are they? Manganiques. Right, so he had to make a lot of them. And even though they're not as good as they used to be in Castle Age, even though you have 6 or 7 of them, it doesn't prove to be effective. And you know what? I think probably for an MVP ends up being that high trade house. As you can see, Tower of the Sultan. I thought Dragovan was going to landmark snipe and close this game out. I really did.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at this spot here, military count 14-9, and it looks like Roos trying to get a bunch of those men-at-arms to make the Tower of the Sultan actually stayed alive throughout this process. You can see he went for the high trade house, and then he backed away. This is the hold that really made Scatterbrain turn the tide in his favor and ended up eventually winning the game from that. But that high trade house, the fact that because it didn't go down, right, you're getting that 230 gold per minute, as we saw, but you're also getting a safe and stable food resource throughout all of this. Dragovan doesn't have that, right? So he's getting a lot of food per minute based on this replay. But later in the game, as we see those villagers get pulled, which I would assume ends up being the last replay, you can see how much food he has or lack thereof, right? So Roos is going to be able to hang out. Look at Dragovan's food right now, 0 per minute. He's sitting on 2 food. He doesn't have a couple pieces of venison to rub together, let alone eat it.
And that's a really tough spot to be in where you can't even make villages. And he just decided this is where I'm going to double down and keep going. And I think at this point, you had that opportunity to pivot and make it into the late game. We see here that final fight where Scatterbrain showed the ultimate decision making of switching to horsemen and flanking at the right time. So Dragovan still had that 2 food. He was fully committed to this and called it right in this moment. Now, Scatterbrained definitely showing that he still has a lot of teeth here, and Dragavan needs to be careful because we are on a very aggressive map. And I know that Dragavan is actually a pretty big fan of this map. And seeing him get Delhi, I'm a little bit worried for Scatterbrained. I know that Delhi has been in a really good position as far as most civilizations go. So I'm not too sure what Scatterbrained with China is going to be able to do against Delhi in general, because Delhi is just so good at taking control of the map right now and setting the pace of the game. There used to be a civilization that you just fight in feudal, you get the sacred sites, you go to castle and overwhelm. But now there's so much more to them. So Delhi, definitely not going to be an easy one for them. The scores do get pulled up though, and we can now see the current standings. On Beasty's side, we have 6 points. At MarineLord's side, we have 7 points. Dragavan and Scatterbrained ultimately being the decider here on whether we're going to have a pretty close one. Because I think for the next two matchups, Baltoon is pretty much favored. But on the other side, it does look like MarineLord's team does have a slight edge in a head-to-head with these matchups.
Yeah, and these players that are a little bit lower on the ATR, I was going to say bottom ranked ATR compared to their other teammates. This is really, this is a kind of situation where I remember you saying this yesterday, Whamen, where this is a potential where they could win a huge event. And now that they're playing somebody that's also of the same ATR level that they have a chance to take the series for their team. And that's exactly what Dragavan's looking to do in the color purple as the Delhi Sultanate. Scatterbrain as the Chinese in the color yellow. So Coastal Cliffs, we did talk about this map a little bit, right? That water that you see on the western side, you can see where those cliffs are. That's a big cliff. Can't get any of that water. That's the point. It shortens the map up just a little bit. I think 75% of the map ends up being playable. A really important thing to look at also, as you're looking at the spawns of both of these players, you don't get a starting stone. You have a secondary stone that's in the back. That primary stone ends up getting wiped out. So Dragavan's is pretty far out there on the western side. Chinese is a little bit more on that northern tip of the playable area that you can see. So sometimes you see players like China going for a 2TC kind of stuff. There's other civs that have a potential to have a second town center. Not necessarily the case in this one because you are going to be extending quite far to do it.
Yeah, China has been quite well known for being a civilization that outbooms everything else. And with China, you also still have that thing with Song Dynasty. So for those of you who don't know, when you get both landmarks, you get Song Dynasty, which gives you different bonuses in any dynasty you get. But with Song Dynasty, you get a little bit faster villager production, which is so important for China to stay ahead, especially in a matchup like Delhi, where Delhi has units or a lot of units. They have some passive resources. They do have, especially with the sacred sites, they do have free upgrades. So you need something extra to keep you ahead. We do see the Imperial Academy coming out here from Mr. Scatterbrain, which means our Imperial officials will follow suit shortly. Dome of the Faith, the landmark of choice for Dragavan, which means we're going to get a lot of beautiful religious plays on this map, and I'm so excited to see them healing up this army. Now, when getting Dome of the Faith, a pretty standard opening after this is getting a stable, and from the stable you make a Ghazi Raider pretty early on. But my question is going to be, now with Imperial Academy being the landmark of choice, is Scatterbrained actually going to be able to respond to this quick enough to stop that first Ghazi Raider?
Yeah, and that really is the crux of it, right? Especially because Scatterbrain's gold is pretty far in the north. So obviously he doesn't have an Imperial official yet, but you can use one of those IOs to get taxes for the Chinese. But because he doesn't have access to it, that gold might end up being a little bit important. He did put a decent amount of villagers on wood. Maybe he's trying to get that barracks as quick as possible. But Chinese, one of the fastest feudal ages in the game. So we'll see if he's able to do that. Or maybe go Song Dynasty with the Barbican to try to help him out. But for the Delhi, getting that Dome of the Faith, obviously a very good timing for him. You have efficient production that you get in Dark Age, which means those Ghazi Raiders pump out that much quicker. And also, you have the ability to, because of the Dome of the Faith, those scholars being a little bit cheaper, but they study a little bit slower, you're going to be able to pull those Gazis back, get heals, and get those technologies, ones that are really expensive, things like professional scouts. And that's what we've seen Delhi do a lot. They get the stable, they can pump out a couple scouts, and then you can get professional scouts if you want to.
And what I absolutely love to see is that forced drop off. The moment the Imperial officials like watches over these damn villages, they drop off the resource they were busy with, and then he goes, he takes the gold, and he drops it off to TC. Very beautifully played here by Scatterbrain, making sure that he's able to get these pretty quickly out on the map. I think the fact that he's able to get this much gold this early on means that he's going to get that Barbican up before that stable is able to produce as many Gazis as you need to keep your opponent on his toes. But the barracks is chosen first, and instantly 2 spearmen being clicked out. Now, this is going to force Dragovan to, look for damage a lot harder than he would have before. But now, where is that Barbican going to go? It looks like the villagers are moving a little bit down. And I would have expected it to be a little bit north, but I feel like he's going to just protect his food sources here at the bottom now. Let's see where those villagers are on their way to. Because those villagers, they are going to need to build quickly. And we can see 5 sheep left. That's going to mean that Scatterbrain is going to run out of food pretty soon. So let's go see what he's going to do with that bad boy. 2 Gazi Raiders already on the field, though. And no Barbican placed down just yet.
Yeah, it's going to be a little frustrating for Dragovan because you want the Ghazi Raiders to do a little bit of damage, create a little bit of idle time. Because Scatterbrain effectively microed his IO onto the barracks, you get Spearman in the blink of an eye, and it looks like he'll be able to do that. With the Barbican coming up from Scatterbrain, I kind of expected this because we saw how aggressive he was with the Kremlin last game. So now, with that Barbican coming up, that Barbican becomes a Borbican. You have the ability to pull that boar over. You have safe with that 5,000 hit point outpost from the Barbican of the Sun. You have those villagers being safe. My question is, though, there was a deer and boar to the eastern side, a little bit eastern, closer to his base. Really interested as to seeing why he didn't end up going for that, because if Dragovan does get professional scouts, he's not researching it yet, but he will get professional scouts. You might have the ability to stop him from getting the deer. But Cal's pointing to me that it provides a little bit of sacred site defensive play, and as the Delhi Sultanate, that's a very good play too.
Getting that sacred side dominance is so important for Delhi, and if you can slow that down, that's great. But what we've seen on this map as well is China being quite aggressive with that Barbican in other matchups as well. And this bites them in the butt a little bit later, because that Barbican, just like the Kremlin for Rus, it also provides a lot of safety in many situations. And right now, this is not going to provide safety for too much longer after that boar is done. But he's probably going to try to get as much out of that boar as he can. Although this is a pretty scary army here from Dragovan already. 8 Ghazis and a 6th Scholar coming out soon. That's going to be quite annoying to deal with, especially when you only have 5 Spearmen, and now Juganu are joining that lineup as well.
Yeah, when you're up against the Delhi Sultanate in feudal, the Juganu are quite the unit, right? Because Delhi can make pretty much 3 units. They make spears, they make archers, they make Ghazis. If you get enough Zugnu, you can take down Ghazi Raiders with it, especially with spearmen helping you out. Those Zugnu aren't going to get that surround. It's always been, probably since the game's inception, maybe a little bit earlier, season 2, season 3 might have been a different story, but China usually has a pretty good matchup against Delhi, and if he gets enough Zugnu, I have a feeling we're going to see why.
Yeah, it doesn't look like Dragvan is putting enough pressure just yet to actually do enough against China to slow them down. And that's exactly what you need to do when they do have those passive extra little bit of villagers coming through. The spearmen in the woodline here providing a little bit of protection, but for now, because keep in mind, that's a lot of Ghazis. He's going to probably produce a lot more out of that. And the archers have joined the party as well. So this is going to start to look a little bit scarier. But with the amount of Jugunu coming out, like you said, with enough of them, it's going to be a little bit harder to deal with. And the amount of gold he's getting just from these IOs watching and dropping off, it's making sure that he can keep getting those Juganus without even having any villagers on gold.
Oh yeah, imagine having fun with taxes. That's all the Chinese players love to do, and getting that little bit of extra is very helpful. You can also, what he did very accurately and what he did very well is using IOs to supervise a military production building for just a little bit so he has enough defense, right? And that's one of the things that's so frustrating when you're playing against China, because you're thinking they're going to eco. You're thinking they have to go out and get a lot of these food resources. Scatterbrain gets Sealed Arrow, which is very effective for your Zug Nu. It's it is helpful. At the same time, all they have to do, they plop that building down. They can supervise really quickly just to make sure they're not in harm's way. But this fight, Dragovon does have a military lead. It's 33-24. He's making as many as he possibly can. A little bit of a micro malfunction over there as a couple Gazis end up going down. But Scatterbrain isn't at that critical Zug Nu mass, where if Dragovon does take a fight, it might be one of his best options.
Now, Dragovan with those Gazis, you can see they're just not that effective against this group of units, and he realizes I need to get these archers together as well. But Zhuganu do pretty well against archers too, and like you said, the mass, it's not there yet, but it's getting there. We see 8 more in queue right now. Wouldn't be surprised if this is going to come from 3 archery ranges pretty soon. The scout does get pushed off now, but these archers are going to be so important in killing these spearmen, because Gazis are the only things that are going to be able to deal with what Scatterbrain has on offer here. Now, those villagers under the Barbican, and that's the power of the Barbican, right? The Barbican is just making sure they are so safe. And the focus is on the fight here, the sacred side in the fight, but these Yuganu need to be careful. They cannot overextend too much.
Yeah, I think that's one of the pitfalls of the Zug Nu, right? Whamen is they're a slow unit, right? And their range isn't as catastrophic, right? It's not a normal archer range. But if you get enough of them, you can lose a couple, and it really doesn't matter. You can see Scatterbrain's got 10 Zug Nu in the queue and continuing to produce them at a rather rapid pace. Military count is starting to even out because I would imagine some of those archery ranges are getting supervised. So Dragovon wants to take this fight. Spears really protecting the Zug Nu. Oh my god. If you want to learn how to have a spearman and archer combo be devastating, you watch that micro right there. And I'm going to go into a little bit of a soapbox here. But when you're microing those units, the spearmen are there to protect your DPS dealers, protect your damage dealers. So Scatterbrain keeping those spearmen right around the Zug Nu so the Gazis don't get a surround, that's huge. And those horsemen have to wait for those spearmen to go down so the Zug Nu can just end up picking them off. It was really good.
Now, I'm a little bit worried. As you're talking, I just see that Zhuganu number increasing. And we're almost up to 40 now. These archers, they're going to take a lot of damage here, and this is going to start getting scarier and scarier, because keeping in mind, a lot of those army numbers are scholars, and they're not in this fight right now. The Gazis are soaking up a lot of damage, but the numbers are getting closer and closer, and with Scatterbrained, he's just getting... He has 9 villages more, because he does have that Song Dynasty. Look at where all those scholars are, right inside the base, just getting the research done. And now we have to ask ourselves, is Dragovan going to be able to transition out of this or do something more mobile with those mobile units he has? And I think that's exactly what he's told himself now. I cannot take this fight head on. Let me go and do something about this. These archers do need to back off, because if he loses any bit of them, he's going to be in a lot of danger.
Yeah, he's got to use the mobility of the scholar, or the Ghazi Raiders, excuse me. You're absolutely right. Finding some raidable areas. You know, China usually has food spots that they got to go out for. I know there's a boar out there, the second one, that they're getting. So they're getting both boar at the same time. Plus, he's got some berries on the eastern side. So you got to be able to raid those areas, right? Because that's where China has to go out in the map. And also that gold is a raidable area as well. Dragovon did a good job of shelling up. I think he realized that he's not going to be able to take a battle in feudal and actually win this game. The problem is the critical mass of the Zug Nu. I think it hit critical a while ago. He's continuing to supervise out of them. He's got 60 Zug Nu on the battlefield. 60. If he makes a Castle Age unit, he goes up to Castle Age, he makes, you know, Men-at-Arms or Lancers or whatever. He can make a Cobra car at this point. It's not going to matter. That critical mass is there. Scatterbrain can now just run into his base and wreak all kinds of havoc. You think with professional scouts that your food economy is safe. Scatterbrain's saying, not so fast, my friend. He's taking the game, and he wants to even the series right now.
The problem is, behind this, Dragovan has all his units at the back there, and they're all the Gazis. They're trying to do some damage. They did kill 5 villagers there at the back, but this is not going to be enough because China has that passive part where they just get more vills. They're doing great, but it's not going to be enough to even this out. And yes, we're getting our House of Learning. The castle has been clicked, but like you said, with the amount of Jugunu, these units are still going to be melting. And those villages on gold are not going to get gold forever. They're about to get disrupted because with that amount of units in your base, you're going to struggle to get those resources for free.
Yeah, and talking about resources for free, the Barbican is on that sacred site on the western side, but on the eastern side, he still doesn't have that cap. Scatterbrain trying to get his forces together, but Dragovon doing the best job he can to try to cover off and cut off some of those reinforcements. But I think for how many Zugnu is here, it's going to be a problem. House of Learning will be completed for Dragovon, but the problem being, Whamen, you don't just absorb that knowledge overnight. You got to study. And that's what he's going to be doing to get some of those technologies. Cow hovering over it with the stable has the potential to get a war elephant that might be able to help him. But there are a lot of spears. There are a lot of Zug new. I think he's going to need more than one.
And he does get that first man-at-arm out, just trying to get that little bit of chunkiness that he needs on this map. Getting that TC to do the firing. We see the villagers getting pulled off now. The last bit of gold that they're ever going to be mining. Now, this is going to be a tough one. Dragovan does need to get that time on his side to just get all those upgrades. Keeping in mind that Delhi's upgrades are free. He doesn't need to invest any of that into, into Castle Age upgrades. But with the singular number of men-at-arms coming out of this, it's going to be really, really tough. Scatterbrain not clicking up to castle just yet, but 80 Jugunus, really scary. Look at that man-at-arm just melting. He really tried, but
Oh my god, that was a real Spartacus moment. Arms was trying to get there, not so much. Now Wayman, there's 80. There's
Mhm.
80 Zugnu. So you're probably going to need all the elephants in Africa to try to deal with this, and it's going to prove to be pretty challenging. He's trying to get gold on the south side. He's trying to mass up men-at-arms with efficient production, but he only has about 5. He has a mass on the northern side as well. Look at all the Zugnu that are there. Oh my god. It looks like Dragovon trying to cut him off here. That Zugnu, just because not having that mobility means you can get them caught in harm's way, and the back end of the base might prove to be that harm that he's looking for. He's got veteran archers that might be able to help out. Scholars coming in on the back, trying to heal these without herbal medicine yet, but he might have the potential to heal up some of those Gazis, but the Spearmen are just way too much of a damage dealer against these things, and he's trying to get on those Lancers, some of those Castle Age units. Doesn't prove to be effective. Scatterbrain continuing to pump Zugnu out. Military count 85 to 30 and continuing to drop for Dragovon.
And all those people who studied so hard this game just died. And you gotta ask yourself, why did I even go to school? The scholars going down, the morality of the civilization in shambles right now. Everybody realizing it wasn't worth it to stay in school. We just had to get that mass and take over. But a Scatterbrain evening this out now, and that was absolutely amazing. Scatterbrain really showing us that yes, he may have lost the first two, but let me show you what I can do with the rest of these civs.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering why Dragovon stayed in Feudal for as long as he did. For the Delhi, I mean, we talked about the units they can make. You get to that Zug new mass. Maybe you just get to castle a little bit quicker to kind of deter you from that. Getting an elephant a few minutes earlier could have been a big difference, right? Maybe it could have helped you take things down. So otherwise, very good play from Scatterbrain. He made enough Zugnu. He knew the unit. He knew the trump card that he needed to beat the Delhi Sultanate with, and it is a crippling amount of Zugnu and taking down Dragovon with a death by 1,000 paper cuts. Now, Whamen, the series is tied. It's 2-2. There's one game left in this series. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about Dragovon was in a 2-0. We were like, yeh, might there be an area where this series, this team game tournament ends up getting called early? Not the case, as Scatterbrain has his Zugnu here in a devastating mass that's going to make all the difference. You can see them moving around, trying to take him down. That men-at-arms, thoughts and prayers are going to go out to that guy. Imagine trying to take out 360 arrows or however many that he had into his body. You're going to need a team of surgeons to help you out with that one.
A team I don't think would be enough, Tim. We might need a church as well. And he had one behind him. He had about 6 million scholars behind this, but it wasn't enough. Those prayers just couldn't keep him in one piece. And that's unfortunately the problem when you let China just get this far ahead with these numbers. And like you said, he could have aged up a little bit earlier, tried and made things work with this army. But Scatterbrained honestly doing an amazing job at killing these. He made sure that the composition was perfect, and it just shows MarineLord can lead his team into victory. It is not always an L for the MarineLorders. And Beastie, I think, would be a little bit worried right now. We have Byzantines versus Malians as the final matchup. I haven't seen either of these players perform on these civilizations. So I think this is going to be a tough one for both of them. Although we know how Byzantines, how they get. I'm a big Byzantines enjoyer. I love myself a good Byzantines game. So I'm on the side of Byzantines here. Scatterbrained, Dragovan, it doesn't matter which one of you. I'm colorblind when it comes to names, but when it comes to that purple flag, purple's the only flag I see. So
And
I'm worried.
purple is my favorite color, especially that royal purple. So maybe that's why I gravitated toward the Byzantines as well. They are quite the intricate civilization. You're going to see if you're new to the game, you might see some different buildings that you probably haven't seen with other civilizations. You might see the way that Byzantines work and what really makes them tick, and hopefully Scatterbrain is going to be able to do that for us so we can see it. But a lot of people are talking about some of the best civs right now. 1v1 in the
Mhm.
meta, people are talking about Abbasid, people are talking about, those kind of stuff. Delhi also, which we just saw actually get a defeat. China still having a good matchup on that one. But I don't think people are talking about the Byzantines as much as they should. Because
Yeah.
the Byzantines, the amount of tempo that you can get in feudal with the winery, with the mercenary house, we're going to see what he chooses for Scatterbrain. But getting those units essentially like quote unquote for free because you're getting
Mhm.
the olive oil just passively while you're gathering berries. The tempo swing is huge, and especially against the Malian Empire that a lot of times in feudal age, they just want to make their buildings and be left alone. So we'll see if Scatterbrain can get an impact there.
Now, I'm a little bit worried for the driest of Arabias, though, because this is not a map with shenanigans. I feel like the amount of pressure that they're going to be able to put is going to be very spawn dependent as well. If Malians does get an unfortunate situation with the golds, it might be quite easy to punish them by just putting that Byzantines Rams that puts everything on fire. It's a crazy amount of pressure that you get from one singular ram. So I'm a little bit worried for Malians to be able to outlast this, but I know once they do, it's really hard to kill them. And Scatterbrain needs to be aggressive enough to get the damage done early on. But with MarineLord in his ear, I'm assuming he's going to be able to do so. And ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to roll on in. Scatterbrain on MarineLord's team. Now in the final game between these two on the Byzantines, and we see a very juicy little Dragovan there with the 7 house opening on gold. Interesting.
Yeah, honestly, really good spawn for Dragovon. Having that gold all the way in the back, you have a wood line that's kind of protecting you there too. It's going to make so whatever you're trying to take down from the Malian is going to be a little bit more difficult in order to do that. Cow is hovering over the neutral trade posts. Remember, you get a mercenary house around those trade posts. You're going to be able to get some of those units. We have Royal Knights in feudal, horse archers, in Castle Age. I will say, against the Malians, though, probably wouldn't pick those.
I don't know. I can imagine with the amount of pressure you can get from Malians early on, Byzantines needs those. They need to set the pace here. Now, do we see any professional scouts here, Tim?
For the Mali, I think it would be pretty crazy as Cow's blocking out the horse archers because he knows I'm going to fixate on them for the rest of the stream. The professional scouts kind of interesting for the Malians because you have the ability to go warrior scout, right? Those warrior
Mm.
scouts just make sure if you are getting some pro scout shenanigans on the other side, maybe your warrior scouts end up reigning supreme. But the thing of it is, the Byzantines don't really care about that deer pack because you can't get oil from venison. He's going to be going with the Grand Winery over here, so it makes sure that those berries get a lot of olive oil. And with a mining camp and on stone, Whamen, This looks like, based on the amount of villagers he has on wood and food, this looks like a second town center.
I'm honestly ready for it though, because I think a lot of people don't see that second TC plays from Byzantines especially, and most of the civilizations that goes head to head with Malians, especially outlasting them in the early game, it has been second TCs. You just need to be able to out sustain or stay on level with that cow boom as well. So I think the second TC play could definitely be something that we might learn from. And with MarineLord giving the guidance, you know that there's some truth to it, right? So definitely excited to see how this second TC is going to pay off. But we do know what this means, though. Byzantines is not going to be able to put that pressure on. They're not going to be able to put that heavy pressure they need to slow down the cow boom. And I think once the cow boom gets going, Dragovan is going to be able to zerk right through.
Yeah, and I really think that Scatterbrain is playing the map he's given, or the map his opponent is given. You know, because he's looking for some areas to take down a Malian player in Feudal Age, and where that gold mine is, it probably ends up being difficult for him to do that, right? It's an easily wallable area. His wood is right next to the town center. He still has sheep, but then he's going to progress with a cow boom a little bit later, so that's going to help him out. There really isn't a good rating potential, so maybe he's like, okay, we could play the long game. We'll get a second town center, and with the cisterns adding that villager gathering speed increase, those villagers mean even more. So is that going to counteract Byzantines? Honestly, I think their economy is one of the best in the game, especially when those olive groves are able to come out and that winery is churning out all of that oil. The Golden Horn is helping you out getting those free units as well. So there's a lot of potential here for Scatterbrain to really end up going above and beyond and really taking down that Malian economy. Second town center, right nestled up by that wood line, and the berries, which we know for the Byzantines are so, so important, because with that olive oil, and I think one of the reasons why the second town center works as well as it should is because you get the Merc House, and with all of the oil that you get, you're just spending your oil on those units for defense, just in case if the Malians got a little cheeky, so it's going to be able to help him.
Oh, for sure. And the fact that he's just leaving those villages onto stone as well, guys, don't be worried. Cal's showing us Cistern of the First Hill. Now, Cal, we know Cistern of the First Hill has been a cheeky little play that we've seen, but I don't think against Malians will we see any of those crazy shenanigans. Cistern of the First Hill will struggle to pay off in the late game, but now what we can see with those two he leaves on stone, we can just see those cisterns that are going to be perfectly connected and start to boost this economy. He needs to leave those bad boys there because he didn't even get that what we see in the early game, the second one that gets nicely connected. But now he does need to get that economy going. And you getting that second TC has been such a valuable thing in staying in this, but I really want to see him getting those units out, and that's exactly what he's doing. The first military building has been put down, and it looks to be a barracks.
Yeah, because I think with the Byzantines, you have an ability to do a little bit of both. Obviously, you're doing the economic advantage, but you're going to be able to, with all of the food that you're getting, because you really want the oil, right? But you have so many villagers on food that you're going to be able to have a lot of oil to spend, and you're going to be having a lot of food as well. So those limited really work synergistically with the Byzantines because of how much food they are, right? So you're going to be able to pump out a decent amount. Is going to go with the Merc House as well. I'm curious to see what units he picks, whether it's longbows, javelin throwers, or Keshiks. I'm seeing a lot of questions in the chat for what trade post mercenaries that are there. It is Royal Knights and Horse Archers for you guys. So most likely Merc House not going there.
Getting a few Royal Knights would not be such a bad situation to have, would it? Now, we haven't seen any wild neutral Merc houses being plopped down, but Blacksmith getting chosen here. And before starting your cow boom, does this mean we're going to be seeing a lot of aggression here from Dragoman? He gets the +1 ranged armor instantly, knowing that he's dealing with Byzantines that is really good at coming in early game and harassing. This is probably a pretty good choice for them. Him going for so many javelin throwers as well, and the longbows coming out from Scatterbrain. Pretty good call here from him, getting that ranged armor first. Now, with the amount of javelin throwers he has, this is going to be quite scary for Scatterbrain initially anyway. But we'll see if Beastie is guiding him into the lane of victory, or telling him that the cow boom is not as important right now. We just need to make sure we make units and go punish that second TC instead.
Yeah, and you know, with the Malians, you kind of expect what their army composition is going to be most of the time, assuming, you know, they have a rather unique kit. Obviously, most of their units are unique, if not all of them, besides the archer, I guess. But the Malians going with the javelin throwers because the longbowmen usually are the best when you're playing against them, right? For the mercenary contract, because those longbowmen are going to be able to take down those Donzos super easily, right? So Scatterbrain's going to have to back up a little bit because he needs those longbowmen to kind of help him out. But because of all of that food he's getting, because of the berries, because of all of that stuff, do you think a stable is worth it?
I think the stable is going to be hard to manage because of how easy it is to shut those down. Well, the problem with the stable is you easily shut it down if you don't micro well enough. And we haven't seen that from these players. We haven't seen them control them as well as they would need to when playing against spearmen or donzos in this case. So I think not getting this is going to be important for them just to manage the units they already have. The double stable being down now, really important here. And if Dragovan responds to this with Donzos, this is going to be tough. But if he doesn't, the stable would be the right choice indeed.
Yeah, and I think because of the rams that are coming in from Dragovon, that stable gets canceled immediately. Horsemen are going to do a little bit of bonus damage against that ram, right? So that's going to be helpful as well. Dragovon trying to get some of his blacksmith upgrades, going to be getting steeled arrow, which is going to help out the javelin throwers. But you could see how well Byzantines is able to defend now, right? Because he had a couple of those berry packs. He's got 10 longbowmen already out. He's got another 5 that are coming on the way, but the Rams are trying to make them say something about it. And hopefully, for Dragovon's case, he will be able to take that Merc House before the longbowmen end up coming in. We'll see if that has the ability to. Dragovon absolutely going more aggressive than we're used to seeing from the Malians. I think he feels like he'd be at an economic disadvantage if he did go with the cow boom, so he's trying to figure it out. Longbowmen do not get out of the Merc House. It's another one. Having production forward is really killing Scatterbrain. This is Dragovon's time to get in there.
Now Dragoman might lose both of these, and he might lose all these units altogether just because of how close it is to the base here as well. But it doesn't matter because this is the Malians, like we know. They do eventually just ramp up. I feel like Scatterbrain did get a lot of value here already from the oil, but he does need to remake those, and we see them being remade at the back here. But that's a lot of horses now. With the amount of horses we see here, this is going to start to get scarier and scarier, and Dragvan just wants to slow this down so that his cows do make the difference, but also he needs to attack before that second TC pays off. And we know, but that is usually around 11 minutes, and it looks like that's what he was aiming for. Right now, at 11 minutes, we see him rotating to the bottom there, getting a few more Donzos. So key here. The Javelin Thrower is going to be able to snipe 1 or 2 of these villages as well, but they need to be careful here, because this is still a really scary army.
Yeah, it's like picture-perfect timing, as you talked about the 11-minute mark. You're right. You get that TC to pay off. Scatterbrain's at a plus 10 economic lead. However, might have the ability to take him down. Limitonet, the villagers pulling their torches out. These javelin throwers are kind of left alone. You had Donzos coming up with the Rams, but there's really not enough Donzos for this Whamen. The Longbowmen are doing a good job of picking them off. Dragovon, that offensive was devastating for him. He was trying to take down that second town center. He just lost his army doing it.
And earlier, when I was saying you can lose the javelin throwers, you need to take a few of them down at least. And him losing this many could just spell the end of the game for him. Depending on what the cow situation looks like at the back, I don't know how he's going to be able to keep up with this. We do see him making sure that he puts them in 0 cows right now. Cow showing us there that the cow boom hasn't even started. And that's what makes Malians so good against most of the time 2TC. But right now, losing that mass, he's really going to struggle getting back into this. And it looks like MarineLord's team might be a little bit ahead if it doesn't turn the other way pretty soon.
Yeah, and I don't think, I mean, as far as this game turning, I'm not too sure that's going to happen. I mean, this is what the Malians don't want to do, right? They don't want to get aggressive in feudal age. They're spending a lot of time making their buildings, making their pit mines, making, they want to get cattle ranches and all that kind of stuff. The second town center kind of forced him in a way to be aggressive. So being that economic prowess, being reactive indirectly kind of made him proactive. And it made Dragovon get in there and try to take it down. But now, not quite getting there. Another cistern coming up for Scatterbrain. He's continuing to gobble up all of the berries that are around here. All of his villagers are very adequately hydrated because of this. So you're dealing with a Byzantine economy that is really, really difficult to catch up with, especially with him not getting gold. He's got everybody on food, everybody on wood. Look at the economy that he has. Because you could just get horsemen, you can get limit to 8, then the longbowmen you come out for free. It's such a heavy, food-heavy macro to be able to produce horsemen and limit to 8. But with the Byzantines, you could make it work.
He does make it work, and he makes it work by getting those longbows there too, and it's just going to be the ultimate counter to whatever Dragovan tries to serve. He's doing his best with these javelins just to make sure he gets some damage. I'm stressing on their behalf already. The horse is extending a little bit too far. The fight, actually, I don't think this is going to go too well here for Scatterbrain. This is a very optimistic one, running straight into those Donzos, and it does go Dragovan's way, but I don't think it's going to do enough for him to be able to keep this push going. He does get the villagers to be a little bit idle over there, but with the lead that Scatterbrain has right now, I don't know if this is going to make a difference. He does double down, get that ram here as well. 2 villagers will fall alongside this, but it feels like he needs to do a lot more damage. Beastie behind him probably saying, hey, keep going. We got this. Just keep being aggressive. But even the tower is getting reinforced now. And this is going to start getting scarier and scarier. 19 horsemen right now, and only going to be 14 Donzos on the field.
Yeah, this is the series, right? This push is going to decide who ends up becoming victorious here. Ram trying to get on that outpost with the arrow slits, but will be going down rather quickly just with that one ram. I think this is a very age-old problem with Byzantines. They rely on the longbowmen for their archers, but you don't realize how many archers you actually need. As that outpost ends up going down, javelin throwers are going to be able to pick off the longbowmen to the best of their ability. We'll see if that critical mass is still there for those Donzos, and it looks like it is. They're continuing to pick them off. I don't think there was enough Donzos in this fight, Whamen. Horsemen getting a little bit of surround. Those javelin throwers going down. Longbowmen are continuing to stay alive. That was the push that Dragovan needed to do some damage. Didn't quite get there. A little bit of a raid on the eastern side as well. And now with Scatterbrain, because he's got all of this eco, because that town center paid off, you can produce and counterattack. You can go up to Castle Age. There really isn't that bad of a play that Scatterbrain can do. Going to be going with Olive Groves, trying to get a lot of that oil, trying to get some more longbowmen, but the game is his for the taking if he wants it.
And the problem is we can see that on Dragovan's side, his villagers also going idle every now and again, meaning that they're most likely running out of food here at the back. And this is just going to show that Dragovan's pump is not going to keep pumping. And with these javelin throwers trying to sneak around, getting some work done. Oh, Scatterbrain knows this man is starving. We see the masses migrating back towards the TC. Apparently everybody being rerouted to the deer back here, desperately trying to get a little bit of food while they can. And the cow count is still standing at 0. And these little units in the base are just getting picked off every now and again.
Yeah, the Malians running out of food wasn't something I expected to hear today either. You know, just because of the cattle ranches and what they usually do. But Dragovan went for that ultra super aggressive play. And don't get me wrong, I love aggressive plays, but if it doesn't work, because this is more of an all-in strategy, if it doesn't work, you are, for a lack of a better word, you're screwed.
And with this amount of units that are just allowed to flank, you can't do anything to them. We see the javelins trying to focus fire here at the back, but it looks like the writings in the stars, Tim. It doesn't look like these javelin throwers are going to be able to do anything. The Donzos are trying their best, but we see that the army numbers are not going to lie. This looks like another point for Mr. MarineLord's team. And Scatterbrain is going to clean up this army here at the back. The javelin throwers desperately trying to focus fire on any longbow they can find, but they need a lot more where that's coming from. And this push is going to go straight to Dragovan's base.
Yeah, and now, I mean, he does have that deer pack to the north. He does have the berry patch to the east, but once those run out, he's got nothing. So Scatterbrain could even take fights that are disadvantageous to him, right? Because he knows he's going to be able to reproduce. He's going to be able to produce a lot of these units, right? pit mines are going to go down. We're talking about the Malians. You want to take down their buildings more so than the villagers, even because of that passive trickle that you get from them. So pit mine going down, houses starting to go down. Malians on the southern side trying to get a little bit of a raid on some of the dear villagers of the Byzantines that might create a little bit of idle time. He's trying to counter raid his way back into the game, but if those units aren't at his base is going down.
And you can see with the Byzantine villagers being extra spicy, just being activated and fighting back. This means he's in for the kill. Oh, the villagers on the Malian side, though, they have the same idea. They don't have the same type of shiving, but they're doing their best. And now they're going to need to be pulled back because the boys are coming. And that's a heavy amount of boys.
And especially because we're the Byzantines, you got to remember, too, I don't know if Scatterbrain got this technology, but if he got Expilatores out of the stable, he did not. The villagers actually go down a little bit quicker because of those horsemen, but the villagers will be alive. Dragovan will not be, as Scatterbrain pulls off a reverse in this series. He was down 2-0 going into game 3. He ends up taking the lead in the majority of these games, 3-2. What a crazy series, Whamen. Lots of ups and downs.
I'm actually so proud of how well Dragovan did in here, but Scatterbrain showed his expertise and he showed that, hey, if I can get ahead, I'm going to make sure it counts. And that's exactly what he did here. It counted. And Scatterbrain definitely showing us he was not going to go down without a fight and putting MarineLord's team very heavily in the lead now.